Chapter 284. I'm a freeloader. The only possibility was that Gubang and Guanghua had come to some sort of agreement in private, but Pengzhan didn't know what it was. A bad feeling rose in his heart. Guanghua looked at Gubang smugly after he was done, only to find that Gubang's face was as black as a sheet. Yes, very, very dark. Gubang was about to explode from anger. He'd been very happy when Pengzhan said that he'd be handing over his entertainment business to Guanghua, but now that Guanghua was rejecting it, Gubang couldn't help but curse him for being an idiot. Why did you reject it? Couldn't you just accept it? It's in your hands anyways, why wouldn't I be at ease? We're in the same boat now, I'm not afraid of you betraying me. Would you be able to save your son if you did? But wouldn't Pengzhan know about the relationship between the two of them if you rejected him like this? Gubang hadn't wanted to expose their relationship so prematurely, planning to give Pengzhan a fatal blow when he least expected it. Now that their relationship had been exposed, the so-called surprise attack was no longer possible. Pengzhan would definitely be on his guard, and he'd have to make use of this relationship. Gubang really wanted to curse at him. He'd finally gotten a trump card, and he didn't think he'd have to use it this soon. He didn't want to fall out with Pengzhan just yet, because even if he did become chairman, as long as Pengzhan was still around, he wouldn't be able to give away the real estate company on his own. Gubang glared at Guanghua hatefully, but there was nothing he could do at this point. No matter how hard he tried to deny it, anyone could tell that he had a relationship with Guanghua. There was no point in trying to explain anything. Capable people do more work. If that's the case, we'll do as Mr. Xie says. Pengzhan humphed coldly. Let's leave the entertainment business to Mr. Jean. I hope that Mr. Jean can train and reorganize as soon as possible so that accidents like this don't happen again. Don't worry, Chairman, I'll reorganize the amusement park immediately. Gubang nodded. Pengzhan was pissed, but so was he. Why was this Guanghua so stupid? Their relationship was exposed just like that? Gubang didn't go home right away after the meeting was adjourned. He asked Guanghua out instead. Now that their relationship had been exposed, they had to move faster. That way they'd be able to complete the chairman election before Pengzhan could react. On Monday, Lin Yi sat in Faubert's car and went to school. He packed some shark meat in a food container for Kang Xiaobo, Tang Yun and Xiaofun. Anyway, it was a whole shark. Lin Yi roasted a large plate and stuffed the remaining half of the shark into the freezer. As for the map fragment in the shark's stomach, Lin Yi put it away in his drawer. He couldn't understand it right now, so Lin Yi didn't spend too much time studying it. He'd just have to wait for the chance to do so in the future. After what happened on Saturday, the relationship between the three had improved quite a bit. Meng Yao at least wasn't putting on a stern face anymore. Even if she had a problem with Lin Yi's womanizing ways, she wouldn't say it out loud. Meng Yao and Yushu kept talking about random topics on the way, but Lin Yi wasn't too interested. They were all things that girls liked, like fashion, cosmetics and so on. Lin Yi didn't have anything to say. They were almost at school when Yushu pointed at a Mercedes not far away. Yao Yao, isn't that Pinliang's family car? Meng Yao couldn't help but frown at Yushu's words. She raised her head and saw Pinliang getting out of the car. Pinliang was under a lot of pressure. His uncle had called him last night to ask about the progress between him and Meng Yao. He heard that they hadn't even held hands yet, and Gubang had already called him a piece of trash. His uncle seemed to be making a move on Pengzhan Industries, but he hadn't even gotten Meng Yao yet. His uncle had given him a death order to get it done within a week, no matter what, even if he had to use force. What's done is done, and Pengzhan Industries would be his. Gubang actually didn't want Pinliang and Meng Yao to be together. Pengzhan only had one daughter, and his family business would definitely be given to Meng Yao in the future. In other words, Pinliang would be in Pinliang's hands. But Fabai wasn't someone who would willingly submit to someone else. Although Pinliang and Meng Yao being together would temporarily alleviate the pressure of him removing Pengzhan from his position as the new chairman, it was only temporary. Once Fabai gained power, he might use Pengzhan's shares to bite back at him. But he had no other choice. Since his relationship with Guanghua had been exposed, he had to seize the opportunity to take control of the company. As long as Pinliang could handle Meng Yao and Pengzhan, he would have time to take control of the company. Pinliang got out of the car and turned around to see Meng Yao's Bentley behind him. He was just worried that he wouldn't have a chance to interact with Meng Yao. He ran over immediately when he saw Meng Yao's car, waiting for Meng Yao to get out. Yao Yao sis, he's here? Yushu giggled as she looked at the attentive Pinliang. Oh my god. Meng Yao rubbed her forehead. Why was this guy so annoying? Was there an end to it? Lin Yi, get out of the car and chase him away. Meh. Get out of the car? Lin Yi paused, Wouldn't he expose his relationship with Meng Yao if he got out of the car now? Yeah, get out of the car and chase him away. Meng Yao nodded. I don't want to see him. What if he asks why I'm in your car? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. It's on the way, let's hitch a ride. Meng Yao didn't think there was anything wrong with that. Why don't you just not explain? You won't think too much anyway. You are Tang Yun's boyfriend. Meng Yao humphed inwardly. He was a shield her dad had hired, and now Tang Yun had gotten it for free. Just thinking about it pissed her off. Huh. Lin Yi smiled and got out of the car. Yao Yao. Lin Yi? Why are you in Yao Yao's car? Pin Liang thought that it was Meng Yao who got out of the car and was about to come over and talk to her, but he didn't expect to see Lin Yi there. Hitch a ride on the way. Lin Yi looked at Pin Liang coldly. I'll count to 3, get out of my way, 1, 2. Chapter 285. Chapter 285. Dr. Kang's birthday banquet. Lin Yi, naturally, wouldn't say anything to Meng Yao in the car after Pin Liang left. It'd only cause more misunderstandings. Lin Yi hummed a little tune as he walked towards school with the 2 containers in his hands. Another beautiful day of school life had begun. Lin Yi had just reached the school gate when he heard someone calling him from behind. He turned around and saw that it was Lu Xinwen running towards him. Behind Lu Xinwen was a pretty girl. Who else could it be other than Tang Yun? Lin Yi didn't need to ask to know that Xinwen had become Tang Yun's messenger again. Xinwen, what's up? Yun wants you to wait for her for lunch. Xinwen's impression of Lin Yi had changed a little. It was also because of Fin's situation that Lin Yi was actively helping out, and so Xinwen didn't reject Lin Yi as much as before. Since Yun had accepted it and was together with him, why should she care about anything else? Xinwen had the same thought in her heart. Sure. Lin Yi didn't even think about it. He wanted to let Tang Yin taste the shark meat at noon, and the shark's fin was the only valuable part of the shark. Lin Yi divided it into 2 portions, putting one into Xiaobo's box for him to bring to Fun, and the other for Tang Yin. As for Meng Yao and Yushu, the 2 misses didn't care about shark fins at all. As they said, what's so good about shark fins? Tang Yun was evidently embarrassed to be so close to Lin Yi in school. She blushed when Lin Yi looked over and turned her head away, pretending that she didn't see Lin Yi at all. That flirtatious look made all the passing boys a little dazed, but no one dared to covet Tang Yun now. Everyone knew that she was the new school bully Lin Yi's girlfriend. Even Zhou Ruoming was beaten up so badly, who would dare do something like that? Xinwen quickly ran back and left with Tang Yun. Lin Yi shook his head. Should he buy Tang Yun a phone? His phone was broken as well and he needed to get a new one. It seems that in the end I still need to earn some money first. Although he could still afford a phone, he would still need to spend money in the future. He couldn't do that if he wasn't financially independent. Lin Yi was starting to regret giving all his money to his old man. He didn't have anything to spend money on back then, so he just let him be. Now that he needed money, he hated that he didn't have enough. When he got to the classroom, Kang Xiaobo was already there. He complained when he saw Lin Yi. Boss, where did you go yesterday? I called you the whole day but your phone was turned off. I still have something important to discuss with you. You were looking for me yesterday? Lin Yi paused and remembered that his phone was soaked in water. It wasn't turned off, so he said, my phone is broken, what's wrong? It's my second grandpa's birthday next weekend. He invited me too. I was thinking if I should bring Xiaofan with me? Kang Xiaobo hesitated and said. Lin Yi was the only one who could make decisions for him in this kind of situation. Bring Xiaofan? To attend your second grandpa's birthday banquet? Lin Yi looked at Kang Xiaobo strangely. You want her to meet Kang Mingming? Yes. Boss, you know that Kang Mingming is a knot in Xiaofan's heart. If we don't get rid of this knot, even if she's with me, she will still think about Kang Mingming. Kang Xiaobo said, although Xiaofan told me that she has already given up on Kang Mingming, I can be sure that there's still Kang Mingming deep in her heart from her sadness. Lin Yi nodded. Kang Xiaobo wasn't stupid. He didn't like Xiaofan blindly. He knew how to look at the relationship between the two of them. You're right. If she doesn't have Kang Mingming in her subconscious, then she won't have schizophrenia, nor will she have delusions. In fact, the root cause of Xiaofan's schizophrenia is Kang Mingming. If she can end it with Kang Mingming, then the wound in her heart will heal by itself. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Xiaobo said. So, boss, I want to ask you to come with me, okay? Me? Go with you? Lin Yi didn't expect Kang Xiaobo to have such a request. Why would I go? Besides, do you need to bring so many outsiders to your second grandpa's birthday banquet? Kang Xiaobo bringing Xiaofan along was barely acceptable. However, if Kang Xiaobo said that Xiaofan was his girlfriend, it was still acceptable. What would it be if Lin Yi went? Kang Xiaobo's classmate? Boss, you said it before. The root cause of Xiaofan's schizophrenia is Kang Mingming. I'm bringing her to end it, but I'm also afraid that Xiaofan won't be able to bear the pressure of sadness. What if her illness acts up again? Kang Xiaobo said worriedly, actually, boss, I also want you to give me some courage. Since you call me boss, it's not a problem for me to go with you. Lin Yi naturally didn't mind going with Xiaobo, but he said, I told you before you're bringing so many people, are you sure it'll work? Don't worry about this, boss. Kang Xiaobo said, in fact, my second grandpa's family would hold many gatherings like this every year. The birthday banquet is just one of the reasons. Every time he would invite some friends to bring their children to participate. It's mainly to improve the friendship of the next generation. Although it's called a birthday banquet, it's actually a cocktail party for networking resources. Everyone can bring their friends to participate. It's just that I didn't like to socialize like this in the past, and no one would try to make friends with me. As he said this, Kang Xiaobo laughed at himself. As a descendant of House Kang, he was the one who was ignored every year. Looking at his cousins being surrounded by a group of boys and girls, Kang Xiaobo felt a little disappointed. But it wasn't surprising. Those who came to make friends with him weren't stupid. The direct descendants of Dr. Kang were the ones who were valued. For a branch descendant like Kang Xiaobo, it was fine as long as they didn't lose face. No one would purposely try to please him. I see. Let's go then. Lin Yi nodded. Lin Yi also wanted to see what kind of person Dr. Kang was. In the future, if he cooperated with Dr. Kang, he would definitely become a competitor. Boss, do you want to bring Tang Yun along? Kang Xiaobo smiled and suggested. Chapter 286. Written in blood by Liang Bro. I just want to find a partner for fun. Kang Xiaobo said, I'm afraid that Fan won't have any fun going by herself, she's best friends with Tang Yun. I'll ask her then. Lin Yi naturally wouldn't make the decision for Tang Yun. Alright, I'll ask Fan to talk to her again. Kang Xiaobo finally had one thing off his mind. If Lin Yi wasn't with him, he really wouldn't dare bring Fan along. God knows what kind of trouble would happen. Right, here's something for you, Lin Yi said as he took out a container from the bag and handed it to Kang Xiaobo. What's this? Kang Xiaobo took it and looked at it. It looked like food. Shark meat and shark fins. Are you going to the hospital to visit Fan? Bring it along, you guys can eat together, Lin Yi said. Shark meat and shark fins? No way. Boss, where did you get this? It's pretty rare, isn't it? Kang Xiaobo's eyes were wide open. I bought it from the market. Lin Yi naturally wouldn't say that he killed the shark himself. That would be too shocking. Haha, I knew you're good to me, boss. I'll go enjoy it with Fan at noon, haha. Kang Xiaobo said happily as he put away the container. Pin Liang was very pissed today. It was like this Lin Yi was sent by the heavens to oppose him. Why was it that every time he wanted to do something, Lin Yi was always in his way? Hitchhiking. Motherfucker, how could he get a free ride? This kid was pretty shameless, hitchhiking with Meng Yao's family? The most infuriating part was that Meng Yao actually allowed him to hitchhike? Are you kidding me? Of course, Pin Liang didn't think that Lin Yi had anything to do with Meng Yao. First, Meng Yao wouldn't fall for Lin Yi. Second, Lin Yi had a girlfriend. His girlfriend was the commoner school beauty Tang Yun. Everyone in the school knew about this, including Meng Yao. Therefore, if there was any interaction between the two of them, it could only be what Lin Yi had said, that they had hitched a ride. As for why Lin Yi was hitchhiking, Pin Liang couldn't ask. If he asked Meng Yao, she'd ignore him. Asking Lin Yi was asking for a beating. Brother Liang, what's wrong? Why do you look so worried? Xiaofu asked carefully as he looked at Pin Liang's hurt face. Now that Nai Peo was gone, he was Pin Liang's only dog. Pin Liang wasn't having a good time, and Xiaofu wasn't having a good time either. He used to be arrogant and no one dared to mess with him. Now he had to be careful, afraid that he'd piss off a god like Lin Yi and beat them up again. How were they supposed to live like this? It's all because of that bastard Lin Yi. That bastard. I wanted to go talk to Meng Yao this morning, but that bastard just happened to be there and kicked me out. Pin Liang was furious, but he didn't dare speak too loudly. Xiaofu withered when he heard that it was Lin Yi's fault. Liang bro, we're weak right now. We're no match for him. We need to think about this. If we can't, we'll just endure it until we graduate from high school and go to college. I don't believe that Lin Yi will still be with us then. Forget it, let's not talk about him. Pin Liang didn't want to talk about Lin Yi either. The problem is, how can I move Meng Yao? She doesn't seem to have any feelings for me? I think I've done enough. Why doesn't she like me? That's... Xiaofu hesitated. Liang bro, Meng Yao's not a normal person. She's from a good family as well, so I don't think normal methods will work on her. We'll have to use some special methods if we want to move her. What's that? Xiaofu, do you have any good ideas? Pinliang's eyes lit up. He seemed to think that Xiaofu was making sense. I read a book a few days ago. When the male lead was chasing after his girlfriend, he wrote a letter of blood. It was written with his own blood. After the female lead saw it, she was so touched that she became the male lead's girlfriend. I think this is a good idea. Young bro, if you have the courage, why don't you give it a try? Letter of blood? That's a good idea. Pinliang thought about it and nodded. It's a very touching thing. I think I'd be moved by my sincerity if I were Mengyao. Yeah, Liang bro, just write a few more lines. I'm sure Mengya'll say yes if she's moved. Xiaofu nodded. Alright, got it. How about this, after class, spread the news that I'm writing a letter of blood to Mengyao. Let the whole class know about it. It'll help me build momentum. Pinliang said. That'll show my sincerity. No problem. Xiaofu nodded. He didn't dare go against Lin Yi, but he was very familiar with other things in the class. And so, after the first class, under Xiaofu's purposeful spreading of the news, Mengya'o's diehard pursuer, Pinliang, was going to write a letter of blood to Mengyao. It was such a sensational and romantic news. The boring life of a 12th grader in school consisted of studying for exams and preparing for exams. Even the slightest thing could cause a ripple. Of course, this ripple started quickly and ended just as quickly. This was because most of the students were doing it for a moment of novelty and wanted to have some fun. After studying intensely, they wanted to have a change of mind and relax. After that, they would once again dive into the sea of questions. Just like Lin Yi beating up Heibao bro, Lin Yi giving a love letter to Tang Yin, and Lin Yi slapping Zhou Ruoming in front of the dean. These things spread quickly, but they disappeared just as quickly. After a few days, no one paid attention to it anymore. Pinliang's letter of blood, on the other hand, only lasted for 2 classes before no one brought it up again. Perhaps it'd attract attention when he gave Mengyao a letter of blood? Mengyao was a little pissed off. Writing a letter of blood? What was the meaning of this? Was he trying to scare her? So what if it was a letter of blood? Did she have to agree to it? Shu, tell me this Pinliang is too much. He's writing a letter of blood to me. Is he threatening me? Mengyao said angrily. What's the big deal about bleeding a little? Yeah, Yao Yao and I bleed every month. It's not a big deal. Yushu nodded. Chapter 287. You go stop him, what's wrong Yao Yao? Yushu didn't know that she just made Mengyao speechless. Shu, don't say stuff like that in the future. You can't just say stuff like that. It'll be embarrassing if a guy hears this. Mengyao said patiently. Mengyao on the other hand. Oh, I don't think it's a big deal. Right, I think we've run out of sanitary pads. I was going to ask Shield Bro to buy some. Yushu said nonchalantly. No way, how could you ask a guy to buy something so private for you? Mengyao glared at Yushu. I'll call Faubert later. Ugh. Yushu blinked. Yao Yao, isn't Faubert a guy? Yushu felt that Faubert was so pitiful and had been sent to the palace by Mengyao a couple of times already. What would he think if he found out? That's different, Faubert's an elder. Mengyao felt that she'd gone overboard a little, too. Faubert hadn't been treated as a man for a couple of times already? Oh, alright then. Yushu nodded, not really understanding. Let Faubert buy it then. That's more like it. Right, how do we stop Pinliang from writing that blood letter? It sounds really scary. I don't want to have nightmares after receiving a blood letter. Mengyao said. You'll have to ask Shield Bro for that, let him handle it. Yushu's mindset was to ask Lin Yi for help. Okay, then send him a text message and let him handle it. Mengyao nodded, thinking that Shu's idea was the only way. She'd have to ask Lin Yi for help as well. Lin Yi looked at the text on his phone, speechless. Yao Yao asked you to stop Pinliang from writing the blood letter. It's all up to you now. He could beat Pinliang up, but stopping him from writing the blood letter was a little too much, wasn't it? There was no reason for him to do anything, was there? He couldn't just warn Pinliang that he wouldn't write a letter of blood to Mengyao, or he'd beat him up. However, with what identity should he go? Lin Yi had a slight headache. But since Miss Chu had given the order, Lin Yi stood up and wobbled his way over to Pinliang's direction. Pinliang was holding a carving knife, hesitating whether or not he should cut his finger. Pinliang wasn't afraid of pain, but wasn't cutting his own finger a little too scary? Xiaofu, help me, I can't do it myself. Pinliang said as he handed the carving knife to Xiaofu. Gao Xiaofu didn't hesitate. After all, it wasn't his hand that was being cut. Then I'll cut it. Brother Liang, bear with it. All right. Pinliang shuddered as blood flowed out of his fingertips. There weren't any big arteries on his fingertips, so blood wouldn't flow out like that. Brother Liang, hurry up. You'll have to start all over again if the blood dries up. Xiaofu said. Oh, okay. Pin Liang quickly started writing on a piece of paper he'd prepared earlier. He'd just finished writing the word Yao when Lin Yi appeared in front of him. Pin Liang raised his head subconsciously when he sensed someone in front of him, only to see Lin Yi. You. What are you doing? Pin Liang jumped. What was Lin Yi doing here? Was he here to cause trouble again? Oh, nothing, I'm just seeing what you're doing. Lin Yi lowered his head and looked at the blood letter Pin Liang was writing. Writing a letter of blood, what else can I do? Lin Yi, I didn't do anything to you, you better not cause trouble. Pin Liang was a little afraid of Lin Yi. Oh, not bad. I admire your bravery, you're pretty good. Lin Yi patted Pin Liang's body twice. I'm just here to see if you really wrote it. You didn't disappoint me, I have high hopes for you. With that, Lin Yi turned around and left before Pin Liang could say anything, leaving Pin Liang staring at Lin Yi's back, confused. The guy didn't come looking for trouble? He even encouraged him. What was he doing? Ah! Xiaofu shrieked suddenly, giving Pin Liang a fright. Pin Liang wasn't happy. Xiaofu, what are you screaming for? Liang bro, your hand? Your hand? Xiaofu's eyes were wide open as he pointed at Pin Liang's hand. Liang bro, what's wrong? Pin Liang lowered his head in confusion, only to be shocked by what he saw as well. His right index finger, which had been cut open, was like a water gun, spurting out blood. It had already dyed the white paper on the table red, and it flowed all over the place. Ah! Pin Liang screamed, almost fainting. He didn't notice the blood gushing out of his hand. You could only feel the pain from a wound, but it was hard to tell how much blood you'd lost if you didn't look. There was a famous experiment about a person who was blindfolded, cut his wrist, and locked in a room with the sound of water dripping. When he heard the water dripping, he thought it was the sound of his own blood and was scared to death. This proved that normal people couldn't really tell how much blood they were losing. Pin Liang, naturally, was no exception. When he realized that his fingers were spurting blood like swords, he was completely dumbfounded. This wasn't bleeding at all, it was like the water gun he used to play with when he was young. Pin Liang didn't doubt that if he raised his hand, the blood on his fingers would spray far and wide. Am I going to die? Xiaofu, get me to the hospital. Pin Liang didn't even have time to write the letter of blood, as his legs were shaking and he couldn't even stand up. Fu, hurry, call my dad, tell him to come get me. He yelled, panicking. Fu, hurry up and call my dad, tell him to come get me. Everyone in the classroom looked at Pin Liang curiously, covering their mouths when they saw the blood gushing out of his finger. How could a finger bleed like this? Yao Yao, look, Pin Liang's hand turned into a water gun. Yushu looked at Pin Liang curiously. Meng Yao was shocked. It's not Lin Yi's doing, is it? I don't know, maybe. Shield bro's really strong, he can even kill a shark, let alone Pin Liang. Yushu said. If Pin Liang knew that Yushu was comparing him to a shark, he wouldn't know whether he'd be happy or cry. Chapter 288. Telepathy. But since the guy liked to make a big fuss about nothing, Lin Yi didn't bother with him. Meng Yao's wish had come true anyway, he couldn't write a letter of blood anymore. Boss, what's Pin Liang doing? Is he doing acrobatics? Why do I feel like he's trained in 6 pulses before? He can even spit blood? Kang Xiaobo looked at Pin Liang sympathetically. Why was this guy so unlucky? He couldn't stop bleeding just by writing a letter of blood. Who knows? I heard that when people get excited, their blood circulation speeds up. Maybe that's what happened? Lin Yi said innocently with a shrug. Pin Liang's blood letter incident turned into a farce, and soon everyone knew about it. It was as if Pin Liang's finger could spurt blood was even more eye-catching than Pin Liang's blood letter incident. What kind of stupid idea is this? I'm going to bleed to death before I'm even done. Pin Liang felt like his head was spinning and his steps were wobbly. He almost fell flat on his face. Brother Liang, you only made a small cut on your finger. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be a problem at all. Xiaofu said, feeling wronged. Liang bro, it's not like we've never cut our hands in fights before, there've been wounds worse than this, but when did it ever stop bleeding like this? You're right. Pin Liang thought about it and realized that it was true. It wasn't like he'd never cut his hands before, he'd lost count of how many times he'd been cut since he was a kid, and there had been many wounds worse than this one, but it had never bled like this. Besides, it wasn't bleeding at all. It was blood spitting. Liang bro, that Lin Yi kid came over earlier, could he have done something to you? Xiaofu said, suspicious. What? But he can't make me bleed, can he? Pin Liang shook his head. He didn't believe that Lin Yi had that kind of ability. He wouldn't be human if he could control other people's blood. That's true. Gao Xiaofu shook his head and laughed at himself for being overly sensitive. Was he a little too afraid of Lin Yi? So much so that he was suspected of such a strange thing. Forget it, let's go to the hospital quickly. If we don't go now, I won't be able to walk anymore. Pin Liang shook his head, not wanting to think about Lin Yi anymore. The guy was his nemesis and every time he saw him, he'd be in trouble. Pin Liang didn't believe that Lin Yi was strong enough to make his hand bleed, but he thought that it was because Lin Yi had coincidentally come over to look at him, bringing him bad luck. Liang bro, your hand isn't bleeding anymore. Xiaofu looked down to see that Pin Liang's hand had stopped bleeding and was back to normal. Jim? Pin Liang paused as he looked at his fingers that had somehow dried up. It's healed? I think so. Gao Xiaofu nodded. No way. Pin Liang raised his hand and looked at his finger suspiciously, but couldn't find anything wrong with it. He shook his head helplessly. It's healed? I don't know what happened just now, maybe it's because I had too much nutrition and there was too much blood in my body. Some of it was automatically discharged. That was the only explanation Pin Liang could think of. He had no other way to explain it. Liang bro, are we still going to the hospital? Xiaofu asked. Why the hell should we go? Let people laugh at us? Pin Liang shook his head. Come on, let's go back. Pin Liang came back quickly, but news of his farce still spread throughout the school, and Pin Liang felt embarrassed. But he couldn't do anything about it. He had already embarrassed himself enough and one more didn't matter. At noon, Lin Yi and Kang Xiaobo walked out of the classroom together. Boss, Lu Xinwen and I made plans to go to the hospital to take care of Fun. Are you coming? I won't be going. Lin Yi remembered his date with Tang Yun. This was the first time this girl asked him to eat together. Of course, Mrs. Tang's invitation didn't count. Boss, Tang Yun is coming too? Kang Xiaobo came to the place where he and Lu Xinwen had agreed to meet every day. He saw Lu Xinwen and Tang Yun standing together. Lin Yi paused and walked over. Tang Yun, weren't you looking for me? Why are you going to the hospital too? I braised some chicken wings and I brought them for you guys to try. Let's go to the hospital to eat. Tang Yun blushed. In fact, she made it for Lin Yi, but she remembered that Fun was still in the hospital. She couldn't eat alone, so she wanted to share it with everyone at the hospital. No way. What a coincidence. Boss brought shark meat too. Kang Xiaobo paused and waved the box in his hand. Shark meat? Lu Xinwen and Tang Yun paused. Where did you get shark meat? Oh, I bought it yesterday and roasted some. There's also shark fins. Lin Yi explained. There were 2 boxes, one for Kang Xiaobo and the other for Tang Yun, but since we're going to the hospital, let's eat together. This box is quite a lot. Kang Xiaobo waved the box in his hand. Boss, why don't you bring your box home for sis-in-law? The 5 of us can't eat that much at all. That's fine. Tang Yun, bring it home for uncle and auntie to try. Lin Yi passed the box to Tang Yun. Tang Yun was a bit embarrassed when Kang Xiaobo called her sis-in-law. She took the box from Lin Yi and was pleasantly surprised. She didn't think that things would be so coincidental. She thought of him when she cooked and he thought of her too. Did this mean that their hearts were connected? Girls in love always like these beautiful fantasies. Lin Yi's casual action made Tang Yun very happy. Especially when she heard that there was shark fins in it. It must be expensive, right? Her parents probably haven't eaten it before, so she could bring it home for them to try. The 4 of them stopped a taxi. Tang Yun and Lu Xinwen didn't want to spend money, but they didn't reject Lin Yi's insistence and explanation. Lin Yi's explanation was simple. From school to the hospital, the bus cost 2 yuan per person. Taking a taxi, which was the car fare, was only 10 yuan. It was only 2 yuan more, why would they take the bus? Chapter 289. You're not mine. Lin Yi got in the car, wondering when he'd get a license plate for that old van. The van he got from Heibao was still parked in Mengyao's yard. It didn't fit in with the elegant villa, but Mengyao didn't say anything about it. Mengyao was a lot more easygoing than before, and she'd slowly accepted Lin Yi as a part of the villa. She pretended not to see the old van Lin Yi had left in the yard. After some thought, he took out his phone and dialed Lingshan's number. Lin Yi's phone was broken, and he was using one of Yushu's obsolete phones. The pink shell phone made Kang Xiaobo, who was sitting beside Lin Yi, widen his eyes. Tang Yun and Xinwen, on the other hand, didn't notice. Hello? Lin Yi? Lingshan picked up Lin Yi's phone, a little annoyed at what happened yesterday. I've sent your picture to your inbox, just check it. Is there anything else? Oh, I'm calling you about something else, Lin Yi said. I have an old van, no brand. Can you get me one? I'm a criminal police officer, not a traffic cop. Ling Shan exploded at Lin Yi's words. Do you have nothing better to do? I'm very busy every day, you can get the traffic cop to register the car, okay? The DMV's on the west side of the city. The van isn't new, where should I register it? Who else would I go to if not you? Lin Yi was speechless. Was this girl stupid? Did she have a problem understanding? Why would he go to her if the car could be registered normally? There's nothing I can do. Don't bother me, there's a big case, I'm very busy. Ling Shan said impatiently. Remember, I'm a criminal police officer. Don't make me do things that have nothing to do with my job. If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up. Oh, I remember. You should also remember that I am a student, not a police officer and not Ultraman. In the future, don't ask me to do things that have nothing to do with my studies. Lin Yi was a little angry. Didn't I just ask you for a small favor? Do you have to say so much? Ling Shan really wanted to smash the phone, but she held herself back. You didn't steal the car, did you? No, there should have been formal procedures in the past. You will know when you check the file. It was opened by Black Panther. Lin Yi smiled. This girl finally compromised. Then drive over in the afternoon. But if I find out it's a stolen car, I'll confiscate it. Ling Shan said hatefully. Okay. Lin Yi hung up the phone with a smile. Boss, your phone. Why did you change it to this one? Kang Xiaobo wasn't interested in Lin Yi's phone call. He had seen Lin Yi drive better cars before, so he wasn't interested in Lin Yi's broken van. Didn't I say that my phone is broken? This is a friend's abandoned phone, I borrowed it. Lin Yi said. Let me see? Kang Xiaobo extended his hand. Lin Yi didn't think much of it and passed the phone to Kang Xiaobo. Xiaobo's eyes went wide as he flipped open the phone. The picture on the screen was of Yushu. Kang Xiaobo wanted to ask something, but he stopped when he saw Tang Yun on the other side of Lin Yi. Kang Xiaobo wouldn't dare to ask this kind of quarreling question, no matter how stupid he was. It wouldn't be good if Tang Yun misunderstood. However, Kang Xiaobo still poked Lin Yi and gave the phone back to Lin Yi with a smirk. Lin Yi also saw Yushu's picture on the screen and smiled bitterly. The owner of this phone is the same person as the beetle. Lin Yi was embarrassed that Kang Xiaobo saw Yushu's picture twice. It seemed like he had to be more careful in the future. Lin Yi didn't think much when he borrowed the phone from Yushu. He just wanted to use it for a few days and he was too lazy to change the settings. Who would have thought that Kang Xiaobo would see it? Lin Yi awkwardly opened the picture menu and was about to change the background, but Kang Xiaobo's eyes widened when he saw it. There was more than one picture of Yushu. Not only was there Yushu, there was also Meng Yao. And they were all pictures of daily life, eating together, shopping together, and even selfies at home. Lin Yi sweated and quickly closed the phone and put it in his pocket. He looked at Kang Xiaobo awkwardly, but Kang Xiaobo had a shocked expression on his face. Now he wouldn't believe that this phone was Lin Yi's. Not to mention the fact that this phone was clearly a color for girls, just the pictures in it were definitely not Lin Yi's. Lin Yi couldn't have so many pictures of Meng Yao and Yushu. Although they weren't the kind that exposed their private life, they were still very private pictures. How did Lin Yi get them? But if this phone wasn't Lin Yi's, then who was the owner? However, Kang Xiaobo wasn't someone who didn't know the gravity of the situation. Although he had a lot of questions in his heart, he could only bury them in his heart. Tang Yun would definitely misunderstand if he said it out loud. The taxi stopped in front of the hospital, and Lin Yi paid the driver 10 kuai before getting out of the car. Lin Yi? Is that you? A pleasant voice sounded behind Lin Yi. Lin Yi turned around and saw Guan Xen. It's you. Haha, what a coincidence. Yeah, Lin Yi, are you here to visit your friend? I'm going to give her acupuncture treatment. Let's go together. Guan Xen couldn't contain her joy when she saw Lin Yi. She had been wandering around the hospital for the past few days. She didn't know why, but maybe it was because she wanted to see Lin Yi. She took the initiative to take care of this ward's acupuncture treatment, and she also became familiar with Lu Xinwen, Kang Xiaobo, and Tang Yun. However, the prettiest girl, Tang Yun, looked at her with a smile on her face, but there was a trace of wariness and hostility in her eyes. Guan Xen naturally understood why Tang Yun would have such a reaction. Tang Yun was afraid that Guan Xen would steal her boyfriend. In fact, Guan Xen didn't really want to fight with Tang Yun. She wasn't sure of her own feelings, but she felt gratitude towards Lin Yi from the bottom of her heart. She just wanted to see him more and talk to him. As for other thoughts, Guan Xen didn't think too much about it. Tang Yun pursed her lips and her face turned pale. Lu Xinwen naturally noticed the change in Tang Yun's expression. She squeezed Tang Yun's hand and whispered, "What, are you afraid that she will steal your boyfriend?" Chapter 290. I'll show you. Tang Yun's words weren't entirely sincere. Xinwen could feel the sweat forming on Tang Yun's palms. Tang Yun was nervous. Xinwen sighed. She'd never thought that a girl as beautiful as Tang Yun would be in danger of being poached. But then she looked at Guan Xen, who wasn't any less beautiful than Tang Yun, and how cute she was in a nurse uniform. Which man wouldn't fall for her? Don't worry, Yun. I'll beat the crap out of him if he dares to mess around with me. Lu Xinwen waved her fist valiantly as she consoled in a low voice. Ha! Tang Yun couldn't help but chuckle. Xinwen was strong, but could she beat Lin Yi? He could send Zhou Ruoming flying with one slap. Tang Yun shook her head. Was she being too nervous? Was Lin Yi really that good? Was there anyone who wanted to steal him from her? Plus, they weren't really boyfriend and girlfriend. They were just close friends. If he really liked Guan Xen, there was nothing she could do. She couldn't just stick to him, right? Boss, you're amazing. Tell me the truth, is there something going on between you and Guan Xen, sis? Kang Xiaobo wasn't an idiot. Seeing Guan Xen's passion for Lin Yi, he'd naturally thought of something. Sis, she's older than you. Lin Yi glared at Kang Xiaobo. It's nothing. I met her when I came here to get my bandages changed. We're pretty close. Injured? Where? Kang Xiaobo laughed as his eyes scanned Lin Yi's body. You bastard. Lin Yi slapped the back of Xiaobo's head. He didn't want to waste any more time with the guy. He walked over to Guan Xen's side. Sorry for troubling you with my friend's situation. Having an acquaintance in the hospital, even if it was just a nurse, was a lot more convenient. Lin Yi knew that. He couldn't just call Elder Guan for everything, could he? If it was a small matter, the nurse would be able to help. It's nothing. It's what I should do. Guan Xen blushed, a little embarrassed. I'm not going to affect your relationship with your girlfriend, am I? Guan Xen looked at Tang Yun's unhappy face and didn't know what to do. Although she was older than Tang Yun by a few years, she was still a girl who had just left school. She wasn't that mature, and she was worried that Lin Yi would distance himself from her because of Tang Yun. Ha! Lin Yi smiled. I won't. In the ward, Guan Xen put the drip on Fun and left in a hurry. Although she wanted to stay and talk more with Lin Yi, she had other wards to take care of. It was a serious matter and she couldn't delay it. Guan Xen knew the importance of it. Therefore, when Kang Xiaobo and Lu Xinwen asked her to stay for lunch, Guan Xen waved her hand and rejected. I really have other wards to go to. You guys eat first, I'll eat later. Tang Yun, on the other hand, felt a little embarrassed. She thought that Guan Xen was embarrassed because she and Lin Yi were here. Women were naturally sensitive, and naturally they could tell that Guan Xen was interested in Lin Yi. However, Tang Yun felt bad seeing Guan Xen being so eager to draw a line between them. They were all women and there was no need to make things difficult for women. It was their own business that they liked Lin Yi. Moreover, Guan Xen didn't express anything. Why did she have to be so aggressive? Guan Xen was busy with Fin's matter and Tang Yun saw it. Tang Yun hesitated for a while and stood up. Guan Xen, sis, why don't we eat together? Thank you, Guan Xen smiled. Patience can't be delayed. Eating is a small matter. Why don't you guys treat me to a big meal when Fin is discharged? That's fine, Tang Yun nodded and didn't try to persuade her to stay. It seemed that she was thinking too much. Guan Xen really had something to do and couldn't stay. Lu Xinwen looked at the sentimental Tang Yun and sighed. Yin Yun had really sunk into it. If it was in the past, why would she think about these things? Fin was very happy that everyone came to visit her at noon. After a few days, Lin Yi noticed that Fin had become a lot more cheerful and talkative. She could tell jokes to everyone and the room was filled with laughter. Of course, this was all Kang Xiaobo's credit. Kang Xiaobo would accompany Xiao Fin every day, chatting with her and telling her about the things that happened in the school. Lin Yi, I didn't expect you to be the school's big bully. Xiao Fin naturally understood Lin Yi from Kang Xiaobo. You can't bully Yin Yun. Otherwise we won't let you go. Haha, I won't, Lin Yi smiled. You should say that to Kang Xiaobo, right? Xiao Fin was a bit shy after hearing Lin Yi's words. She lowered her head slightly. After lunch, Lu Xinwen went to the washroom to wash the containers and utensils. Kang Xiaobo sat at the head of Xiao Fin's bed hesitantly. It was obvious that he wanted to talk about the gathering this weekend. Lin Yi held Tang Yun's hand. Tang Yun trembled slightly and rolled her eyes at Lin Yi. Why are you holding my hand? Xiaobo has something to say to Xiao Fin. Let's go over there, Lin Yi pointed at the bed opposite them. Oh. Tang Yun just noticed that Kang Xiaobo seemed to have something to say. She ignored Lin Yi's hand and sat on the bed opposite them. Although they were quite far away, they could still hear what Kang Xiaobo said. Kang Xiaobo told Xiao Fin about his second grandpa's birthday. Naturally, he also told her about Kang Ming. This was the first time Xiaofan knew about Kang Xiaobo's identity. He was that person's cousin? Kang Xiaobo invited Xiaofan to his second grandpa's birthday party. Xiaofan hesitated and lowered her head. She was nervous and didn't know what to do. Tang Yun didn't think that Kang Xiaobo would make such a bold decision. He wanted to bring Xiaofan to his family's banquet. Moreover, it was a banquet with Kang Ming. Tang Yun sympathized with Xiaofan's nervous and hesitant look, but she couldn't say anything. If you dare to treat me like how Kang Ming treated Xiaofan, I'll die in front of you. Tang Yin didn't know where the courage came from, but she suddenly turned around and looked at Lin Yi, speaking word by word. Lin Yi was stunned. I don't want your promise. Tang Yun interrupted Lin Yi. Kang Ming promised Xiaofan before, but he abandoned her. But I'm not Xiaofan. Have you thought it through? If you don't want me in the future, I'll really die in front of you. Chapter 291. Chapter 291, Psychopathic Killer, I won't. Lin Yi clenched his fists. This was his last mission and he'd be free once it was over. He'd be able to stay in this city and live with the girl he loved. Tang Yin didn't say anything else. She felt sorry for Fen and she didn't want the same thing to happen to her. This was the reason why she kept confirming Lin Yi's feelings. She had to be certain, because she was already unable to extricate herself and was sinking deeper and deeper. Lingshan was troubled. Why was the year so unlucky, right after she took over the criminal police team? First, Heibao got away and Lin Yi caught him. He thought he'd be able to relax for a few days, but a psychopathic murderer suddenly went berserk in the hospital, injuring one of the police officers in charge of guarding him, and escaped. The psychopathic killer was already heavily injured when he was hospitalized. Of course, he was injured by Lingshan, and Lingshan knew very well how strong she was. She simply couldn't stand the sight of this person. He killed an entire family, not even sparing a 3-year-old boy. His methods were extremely cruel too, putting him in a washing machine and stirring him to death. Naturally, Lingshan wouldn't go easy on someone as cruel as this. The guy resisted during the arrest, and that was exactly what Lingshan wanted. After a round of punches and kicks, the guy was sent to the hospital. The guy would be sentenced to death in court, but letting him die like that was too easy for him. And so, Lingshan risked punishment and sent the guy to the hospital. Fortunately, the guy was too cruel and the public wasn't talking about Lingshan at all. Instead, they were criticizing the psychopathic killer. Huaijuan, on the other hand, put in a few good words for Lingshan, and the whole thing was over. The psychopathic killer stayed in the hospital for a week, and logically speaking he wouldn't be able to recover even after a month, but then he suddenly went berserk, beating up the police officer and running away. There was no news of him since. Lingshan's face darkened when she received the report. Another one ran away? Wouldn't people laugh at her for being useless? When Yang Huaijuan was the captain, he'd managed the criminal police team's affairs in an orderly fashion. Lingshan had only been in charge for a few days, and there were already so many problems. She just solved the previous problem, and now there was another one. How could Lingshan not be pissed? Lin Yi just had to call it this time, asking about the car brand and whatnot, and Lingshan almost cursed him and hung up on him. Police officers had been deployed at all the major traffic arteries. The moment that psychopathic murderer appeared, he would be discovered. However, the strange thing was that after the psychopathic murderer ran away from the hospital, it was as if he had disappeared. No one had seen him again. Logically speaking, the physical characteristics of this psychopathic murderer were very obvious. His head was wrapped in bandages and he was wearing a hospital gown. Such an obvious person, if he ran on the streets there would be witnesses. Unfortunately, there were none. One could imagine the pressure on Lingshan, and she didn't want to trouble Huaijuan anymore. She could only endure the pressure and send more police officers to search for the psychopathic murderer. Ring dash. The phone rang abruptly and Lingshan quickly picked it up. Lingshan speaking. Captain Song, it's Lu Wangli. Something's happened. Wangli's voice came from the phone. What's wrong? Lingshan's heart skipped a beat. What she'd been afraid of had come true. She'd had enough problems already, why was this happening again? Guanya didn't actually run away, he's been hiding in the hospital. Wangli said urgently. He actually made a move on Bodyguard again, about to kill him, but a nurse who entered Bodyguard's room found him. He's using the nurse as a hostage and he's asking us to prepare a helicopter for him to leave. Wangli reported the situation in one breath. It wasn't very detailed, but time was tight and he didn't have the time to explain in detail. Guanya was that psychopathic murderer, and Bodyguard was one of the victims of this case. Guanya had stabbed him in the heart, but the position of the heart was a bit off, so he didn't die right away. He was sent to the hospital for emergency treatment, and it was a good thing that he survived. But she didn't expect Guanya to still not let Wuxia go, even in a situation like this. Just what kind of hatred did he have for Guanya? Lingshan had asked Wuxia more than once, wanting to know if he had a grudge with Guanya, but Wuxia denied that he knew Guanya. When she asked him if he had any enemies, Wuxia wouldn't say that he was tired, but that his heart was in pain. Lingshan couldn't do anything about it, and decided to wait for him to fully recover before asking. But one thing was for sure, Wuxia must be hiding something. As for Huang Guanya, they couldn't get any answers. Other than repeating how he put the 3-year-old boy into the washing machine and stirred him to death, he also talked about the process of raping and killing Lu Bujia's wife. Even though the criminal police had dealt with many cases, they were still horrified by the horrifying process of the crime. Judging from Huang Guanya and Lu Bujia's testimonies, the two of them were completely unrelated. Huang Guanya was also treated as a psychopath who killed people, while Lu Bujia didn't even know Huang Guanya, let alone have any grudges. But now Guanya had gone to Bujia's room again. This wasn't a simple matter anymore. It was strange and unusual. Lu Wangli was the captain of the first squad in charge of searching around the hospital. He'd been the first one to arrive when something had happened. He didn't dare tarry, and sent a negotiator to negotiate with Guanya while reporting the situation to Lingshan. "I'll be right there." Lingshan hung up and got ready to rush to the hospital. No wonder she couldn't find Guanya anywhere. He didn't run away from the hospital at all. There should be quite a lot of people in the hospital with bandages on their heads, so it was normal that no one would notice him. Lin Yi and Tang Yun were sitting on the bed, swearing their undying love, when Xinwen stumbled into the room. Not good, not good, something big happened. Lin Yi and Tang Yun, as well as Kang Xiaobo and Fin, paused and looked at Xinwen, confused. They didn't know what she meant by something big. It said that a psychopathic murderer kidnapped a nurse in the ward. A group of police officers has already surrounded the ward. It's at the end of the corridor on our floor. I was scared to death, so I ran back to inform you, Lu Xinwen said with lingering fear. Psychopathic murderer? Lin Yi paused. Why is he in the hospital? Chapter 292. Guan Xian's abduction. Lin Yi chuckled to himself. Indeed, it was fortunate that he hadn't come to this room, otherwise he'd be in danger. Lin Yi wouldn't hesitate to kill anyone who threatened Tang Yun. Boss, should we go take a look? Xiaobo was a little curious. It wasn't often that he saw cops and robbers fighting each other. Let's go. Lin Yi didn't mind. He turned to Tang Yun. You coming? Tang Yun was a little scared but curious at the same time. You guys want to go watch? Xinwen was surprised. She told them not to go out of goodwill, but they'd volunteered to go watch. There's the police in front, it should be fine, right? Kang Xiaobo said as he walked out. Sure enough, when he opened the door, the corridor was already full of onlookers. Some of them were wearing hospital gowns, and there were also doctors and nurses passing by. However, the innermost part of the corridor was separated by the police to prevent these onlookers from going over. Lingshan ran all the way to the hospital with Lu Wangli by her side, reporting the situation to her in detail as they walked. The nurse who was kidnapped is called Guan Xian, 20 years old, just graduated this year. When she went to change Lu Bujia's bandages, she saw Guanya trying to harm Lu Bujia, so she was taken hostage. Wangli explained as they walked. What? Guan Xian? Lin Yi bumped into Lingshan as he walked out of the room, surprised to hear Wangli mention Guan Xian's name. Lin Yi? Why are you here? Lingshan was surprised to see Lin Yi here as well. She hadn't expected him to be here. Tang Yun was a little jealous of Lin Yi's concern for Guan Xian, but she didn't say anything. Her heart tightened when she heard that Guan Xian was the one who was kidnapped. She was still a little hostile towards Guan Xian, but it was undeniable that the two had become friends after spending some time together. No matter what, Tang Yun was still worried about Guan Xian. Lin Yi didn't answer Lingshan's question, instead turning to Wangli. Lu bro, you said Guan Xian was the hostage? Why, you know her. Wangli was quite familiar with Lin Yi now, since he'd driven him and Shark home the day before yesterday. Yeah, she's a friend of mine. Lin Yi nodded. Should I go take a look? Lingshan frowned but didn't say anything. Lin Yi was a decent fighter and he could at least protect himself. If he knew the hostage, things might turn for the better. Guanya knew who he was and he'd be on his guard if he were to make a move. Huaijuan, however, was the only one in the police force who was better than him. If she wanted to get close to Guanya, Lin Yi might be the best candidate. But honestly speaking, Lingshan didn't want Lin Yi's help. One, she was worried about his abilities, and the other, if the guy really did help her again, he'd only ask her to do more things for him in the future. Don't talk to me like that. Guanya looked at the negotiator in front of him with disdain. Get me 500,000 in cash and a helicopter full of fuel, or I'll kill this girl. Guanya licked his lips, a fierce light in his eyes. He tightened his grip on Guan Xian's neck, and a thin line of blood appeared. The negotiator was also sweating profusely. He had not expected Huang Guanya to be so unmoved by force or persuasion. He had not listened to a single word he had said to him. Instead, he had told him about how he had killed a 3-year-old boy in a washing machine. All right, I'll do it. Lingshan's voice sounded. But you have to ensure the safety of the hostage. Lingshan didn't have a choice, she had to stall the criminal first. If Guanya hurt the hostage, she'd be held responsible. She was only a temporary captain right now, and she'd probably never get promoted. She'd even be demoted. Don't come near me. Guanya's eyes flashed with hatred when he saw Lingshan. He was a little afraid of this woman, and he wasn't a match for her. Letting her get close would put him in danger. All right, I won't go. Lingshan frowned. She'd wanted to get close without anyone noticing and subdue Guanya, but Guanya was smart enough to know that Lingshan was a good fighter. He didn't give her a chance at all. Tell your men to put their guns down and back off. Guanya said. All right, put your guns down. Lingshan waved her hand at her men. They had to play it safe right now, and they couldn't just shoot Guanya if they didn't have the confidence to kill him in one shot. Get me some food, I'm hungry. Guanya said. Don't even think about doing anything to the food, I'll give it to this girl first. Call the hospital canteen now and tell them to send the food here directly. Don't do anything. All right, I'll do it. Lingshan nodded, thinking of a plan in her head. Lingshan was quite happy when she heard that Guanya wanted to eat, since she only needed to do something to the food, but she didn't expect the guy to be this smart. Calling the hospital to deliver food to her face to face. It seemed like it would be hard to do anything in such a short amount of time. Don't mind me, hurry up and shoot. The patient in the room was stabbed by him, and he'll be in danger if we don't save him. Guan Xian called out suddenly. Lingshan paused, remembering that Bodyguard was still in the room. Her face turned ugly. She'd been so focused on dealing with Guanya that she'd forgotten about Bodyguard's situation. Fuck. Do you want to die, you bitch? I'll rape you first and then I'll cut off your flesh piece by piece. Guanya wasn't expecting the nurse to go back on her word and was pissed. He pressed the knife to Guan Xian's neck, pressing down hard enough to see the blood dripping down. Don't be rash. You don't want the deal anymore, do you? Lingshan stopped Guanya. What happened before was indeed a good opportunity. She could have killed Guanya if she'd ignored the casualties, but Lingshan didn't dare take the risk. She really didn't dare. She didn't dare to make any more mistakes. Don't threaten me. Guanya curled his lips in disdain. Chapter 293. A kiss. Get him to bring the food to my room. Guanya ordered. He didn't want to get distracted, so he had to get someone to bring it to his room for safety. I'm not going. I'm not going, don't look for me. The waiter was quite young, evidently new to society. He'd never been in a situation like this before. Huang Guanya's roar scared him so much that he fell to the ground. If it weren't for a policeman beside him who quickly helped him up, he would have dropped the lunchbox in his hand. Guanya was speechless. There was someone this cowardly? He hadn't even done anything to the guy and he'd gotten this scared just from a box of food? Wasn't he a little too much of a coward? Hurry up, get him to bring me the food, I'm hungry. Guanya yelled. No. I'm not going, definitely not even if you beat me to death. The waiter shook his head, fear in his eyes. There was actually a puddle of water under him. The police officer couldn't take it anymore, the guy was pissing his pants? He frowned at Guanya. Why don't I bring it in for you? Don't worry, I don't have a gun, I'll hand it over right in front of you. No, you bring it to me? Do I know you? Who knows if you'll ambush me? Guanya was no idiot, there was no way he'd let the police get close to him, that was suicide. Lingshan was helpless as well. You saw it yourself, there's no way he'll bring it to you, we can't force him to, can we? Do you want me to send you some? You're even worse. Guanya rejected the suggestion immediately. How about this, get some random bystander to bring it in. As soon as Huang Guanya said this, the crowd that had been watching from the sidelines immediately backed away. No one wanted to be called out to be a strong man. It was fine for these people to watch the fun, but it was absolutely impossible for them to do something dangerous. No one wanted to die, and delivering food to a gangster like this was a suicide mission. Lingshan looked at the people who'd been watching the show retreating, feeling a little pissed off. She told them to stay away but they didn't, coming so close to watch the show. Why were they running away faster than rabbits now? But there was nothing she could do about it. All she could do was complain in her heart. All of a sudden Lingshan turned her head and looked at Lin Yi not too far away. Although he hated Lin Yi, he had to admit that Lin Yi was very skilled. Even if he was still a distance away from him, it should be enough to deal with Huang Guanya, right? He was a suitable candidate to deliver food. One had to say Guanya and Lingshan thought alike this time. The crowd dispersed, leaving only Lin Yi standing there like an idiot. Guanya thought that it was just the young man's bravery and didn't think much of it. Student over there, bring my food in here, I'll give it to you. It's you. Stop looking, I'm talking to you. Me. Lin Yi smiled inwardly, but put on a surprised face as he pointed at himself. Yes, hurry up, don't waste time. Guanya roared. You won't hurt me, will you? Lin Yi asked weakly, a little hesitant. I won't. Hurry up. Guanya said impatiently. Then, all right. You said it, you won't hurt me? Lin Yi nodded. Lingshan was overjoyed as she gave Lin Yi a look, but Lin Yi didn't seem to see her at all. He went to get the food. Tang Yun wasn't expecting Lin Yi to be chosen by the gangster, panicking a little. She didn't want Lin Yi to take the risk. There were so many police officers here, it wouldn't be Lin Yi's turn, would it? She held onto Lin Yi's hand nervously. Lin Yi? It's fine. Don't worry about my skills? Lin Yi whispered to Tang Yun. Tang Yun paused. She was right, she was too worried. Lin Yi was able to beat someone as cruel as Heibao half to death, and he was able to save her from the building without a scratch. He must be very strong and she didn't have to worry about anything. Plus, Heibao didn't even pose a threat to Lin Yi with a gun, let alone this knife-wielding guy. But, you're the hero saving the damsel in distress, what if she marries you? Tang Yun started worrying about something else. This was the legendary hero saving the damsel in distress. Wasn't that the reason why she liked him? What if Guan Xan joined in and fought with her? Tang Yun couldn't care less about her embarrassment anymore. I can't just leave her to die, can I? Lin Yi didn't expect Tang Yun to be so meticulous. He squeezed her soft, moist hand. Then I won't? Then you should. Actually, Guan Xan is a good person. She's still worried about the patient in the room in a situation like this. Tang Yun respected Guan Xan, she was a kind girl. Hey, aren't you two going to die together? We'll talk about it after you send me food. Guanya wasn't too happy to see Lin Yi and a girl whispering sweet nothings to each other. Are you done yet? Let's talk about it when I come out. Aha, even the criminals don't want to. Lin Yi smiled. Yeah. Tang Yun nodded shyly. Be careful. Then I'll be careful if you kiss me? Lin Yi smiled evilly at Tang Yun. Tang Yun was awkward. This guy was still thinking about stuff like that at a time like this? She held herself back. Then, I'll wait for you to come out safely. Okay, wait for me. Lin Yi smiled and let go of Tang Yun's hand. He walked towards the officer and took the food from him before walking towards Guanya. Guanya was getting impatient as he pulled Guan Xan back, giving Lin Yi the space at the door. Come in and close the door. Okay. Lin Yi walked in hesitantly and closed the door. 10 seconds later Lin Yi came out again and ran to Tang Yun. I'm out. Can you kiss me now? Lin Yi's voice wasn't loud, but Lingshan could still hear him clearly. She was about to explode from the rage she was feeling. Her original plan was for Lin Yi to find a chance to take Guanya's blade, or kill Guanya. But did he really just give him a box of food and leave right after that? Chapter 294. Chapter 294. The Legendary Love Triangle. What do you mean? Lin Yi looked at Lingshan a little pissed off. He was in the middle of a romantic relationship with Tang Yun, so why was this girl always trying to ruin things? He glanced at her and said, if you have something to say, can't you say it later? Can't you see I'm busy? Busy? Was this guy treating this as serious business? Lingshan almost fainted. She wanted to kick Lin Yi a couple times, but Lin Yi wasn't part of the police, she couldn't do anything to him. Lingshan couldn't help but say coldly, Lin Yi, don't you know how to prioritize when it comes to relationships? You really went to deliver food to him? Couldn't you have found a chance to kill Guanya? Of course I did. Are you done yet? Are you trying to sabotage me? Lin Yi was about to explode. Was there something wrong with this girl? Guan Xan was still in there, so how could she let Guanya do whatever he wanted? Did she even have a brain? Killed him? Lingshan blinked, not understanding what Lin Yi was getting at. But at that moment the door opened completely, and Guan Xan rushed out, pouncing on Lin Yi as soon as she saw Lin Yi. You scared me to death. You scared me to death. Guan Xen hugged Lin Yi tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks. Guan Xen was no longer the strong and righteous girl she'd been a moment ago. She'd turned into a fragile girl. She'd thrown caution to the wind and asked the police to kill Guanya because she was worried about the patient's well-being. That was the duty of a nurse, a sign of the kindness and selflessness of human nature. But now she turned into a normal girl, looking for a place to hide from the wind and rain after the fright. She turned her head away, not saying anything. Ha! Lin Yi looked at Tang Yun helplessly, only to see her turn her head away with a pout, not saying anything. What could Tang Yun say? Although she felt a little wronged and a little jealous, Guan Xan had just been saved by Lin Yi. She needed to be comforted. Tang Yun wasn't a petty person, so she could only pretend that she didn't see anything. But Tang Yun didn't understand. How did Lin Yi save Guan Xan? He only entered the ward for 10 seconds and then came out. I thought he was in a hurry to ask for a kiss. But now it seems that isn't the case. No matter how unbelievable it was, Guan Xan had managed to escape. There was only one possibility: the criminal had been taken care of by Lin Yi. Tang Yin didn't believe it, Lingshan didn't believe it, and none of the police officers present believed it. It was too weird, too unbelievable. Lingshan was just about to say something sarcastic when she saw Guan Xen running out after her. What the hell was going on? Lingshan was completely dumbfounded. What the hell was going on? Lingshan wasn't in the mood to ask Lin Yi anymore. She took the lead and charged into the room, but what she saw made her freeze up. Guanya was on the ground, the dagger in his hand falling to the side. His death couldn't have been more gruesome, his eyes bulging out, and his face filled with shock and rage. He didn't accept this, and he died with his eyes wide open. The way he died made Lingshan speechless. It could be said that Guanya was killed in one hit, and the weapon made Lingshan speechless as well as a little disbelieving. It was a pair of chopsticks, the same chopsticks Lin Yi had brought with his lunchbox. At this moment, the chopsticks were directly stabbed into Huang Guanya's heart. Judging from the length of the chopsticks had directly pierced through Huang Guanya's heart. It was probably going to come out from his back. Lin Yi did this. How did he do it? Lingshan's mind was filled with questions. 10 or so seconds, excluding the time it took to open the door and walk out, he had to put down the food, attack, snatch Guanya's dagger away, push Guan Xian away and stab the chopsticks into Guanya's heart. In a matter of seconds he did all of this? All in one go? Lingshan was biased against Lin Yi, but she had to admit that it was too fast. Guanya wasn't even able to scream before he was dead. Lingshan asked herself if she'd been the one delivering the food, would she have been able to do it this fast? And without harming the hostages? Lingshan really wanted to say that she could do it, but she hesitated, shaking her head. Lingshan ignored Guanya's body for now and ran over to Bujia's bed. The bed was already dyed red with blood, and Guanya had stabbed him a few times in the abdomen, and it was bleeding profusely. Call the doctor. Lingshan yelled at Wang Li, who'd rushed in after her. Yes. Wang Li was surprised by Lin Yi's strength as well, but he was even more puzzled. Wasn't Lin Yi Captain Song's boyfriend? Why was he asking for a kiss from another pretty girl in front of Captain Song? Could it be that they were in a love triangle? No wonder Captain Song had such a bad temper, giving Lin Yi a hard time. Wang Li didn't stop his footsteps even for a second, calling the doctor the moment he reached the door. The doctors and nurses had already been notified by the police and were waiting not far away, and they all rushed over as soon as the matter was over. Guanya. Lingshan didn't even think about saving him. There was no need to do anything at all, he was dead already. Guanya's life or death didn't matter to her. The guy was a psycho, and other than saying some disgusting things, she wouldn't get any useful information out of him. As long as Bojia was fine, it would be the key to the case. The doctors and nurses pushed Bojia to the surgery room, and the remaining police officers started cleaning up the scene and collecting the body. Ahem. Tang Yun couldn't hold it in anymore. How could he keep hugging her like this? What was he trying to do, even in front of her? Nothing had happened yet, and he was already flirting? Guan Xen heard Tang Yun's coughing and came back to her senses, realizing that she was hugging Lin Yi tightly. She let go embarrassed. It was just her instinct. Lin Yi saved her, and she subconsciously thought that Lin Yi's embrace was her safe haven. She didn't think too much about it, but hugging Lin Yi in front of his girlfriend was a little embarrassing. Chapter 295. Sending back and forth. The two were too far apart. They were about the same age, but they had different statuses. It was impossible for them to be together. On the other hand, Tang Yun was a good match for him. They'd have a bright future together if they got into the same university. Guan Xen sighed softly, feeling a little dejected. This was the first time she'd felt something for a man, and it wasn't hers. He's not my boyfriend, Tang Yun said, embarrassed by Guan Xian's apology. Ah. Guan Xian smiled. This girlfriend of Lin Yi was quite an interesting one. Tang Yun was getting embarrassed by Guan Xian's smile. Guan Xian sis, what are you laughing at? If he's not, then he's not, you can take him if you like. Take him? If he's not your boyfriend, how can you just give him to me? Guan Xian couldn't help but tease Tang Yun. Guan Xian was just a girl who hadn't experienced much of the world. At home, in the hospital, and in front of her friends she was still a kid. But in front of Tang Yun, who was 2 years younger than her, she'd naturally put on the airs of an older sister. Tang Yun paused. He wasn't her boyfriend, so why did she have to send him back and forth? Lin Yi smiled bitterly on the sideline. He wasn't a commodity? How could she send him back and forth? Miss Guan Xian, is it? Please come with us for a statement. Ling Shan walked over, frowning as she looked at Guan Xian, who'd just gotten off Lin Yi's body. This pretty nurse was related to Lin Yi as well? Is there something wrong with your head? Lin Yi turned around. Can't you see that idiot's injured her neck? Idiot? Ling Shan paused, smiling bitterly inside. Only Lin Yi would call Guanya an idiot. The man who'd made her feel like she was facing a great enemy was nothing more than an idiot in Lin Yi's eyes. But Ling Shan couldn't say anything. After all, Lin Yi had taken care of Guanya in a matter of seconds. In front of Lin Yi, Guanya really was an idiot. However, Lin Yi's words were a little unpleasant to the ear. What did he mean by his brain wasn't sick? This guy has asked me more than once if I'm crazy. Don't be so sarcastic, right? Lin Yi, what did you say? Ling Shan glared at Lin Yi. You have to come with me for a statement. Do you know that you killed someone? I am a good Samaritan, all right? Lin Yi shrugged. Besides, you are the one who told me to kill him. When did I tell you to kill him? Ling Shan asked. You didn't ask me to kill him, so why are you asking me if I can't find a chance to kill Huang Guanya? Lin Yi curled his lips. He didn't want to argue with Ling Shan about pointless things like this, but the tigress wouldn't stop. Lin Yi had no choice but to play along. You. Ling Shan was speechless. That's what I asked after the fact. Oh, you asking after the fact means that you wanted me to kill him. Lin Yi said. Why else would you be giving me that look? Are your eyes broken? Facial paralysis. You? Ling Shan glared at Lin Yi like a tigress. She wanted to eat Lin Yi alive, but she was always losing in front of him. Ling Shan was starting to wonder if he was her nemesis. Lu Wangli looked at the furious Ling Shan from afar, and then at Guan Xian, who was close to Lin Yi. He was a bit troubled. Could it be that the love triangle wasn't enough, and now there was a four-way love triangle? All right, enough with the you. You owe me another favor. I'll be looking for your car this afternoon. Wait for me. Lin Yi said before turning to Guan Xian, ignoring Ling Shan. Go put some ointment on your neck, there's still blood. Yeah. Guan Xian was a nurse, and naturally she knew the severity of her injury. It was just a small cut, nothing serious. Guan Xian was taken away by the police after applying the ointment. Ling Shan, on the other hand, couldn't make up her mind to go get Lin Yi again. Wasn't he looking for her car in the afternoon? She'll just do it then. On the way back to Fen's room, Lin Yi reached out to grab Tang Yun's hand, but Tang Yun shook it off shyly. When? Lin Yi asked with a grin. What? Tang Yun paused. Give me a kiss. Lin Yi said. Next time. Tang Yun rolled her eyes at Lin Yi. She'd lost all her courage after what happened to Guan Xian. How could she have the courage to kiss Lin Yi? Then I'll kiss you? Lin Yi naturally knew why Tang Yun was unhappy. Go to hell. Tang Yun naturally wouldn't agree. Ha. Lin Yi wasn't in a rush. He walked into the room with Tang Yun and looked at the time. It was almost time for afternoon classes. Kang Xiaobo was saying goodbye to Fen. Fen hadn't made a final decision about accompanying Kang Xiaobo to his family's banquet. She needed to think about it. Kang Xiaobo didn't rush her. He only asked her to give him an answer after thinking about it. The four of them left the hospital and stopped a taxi. Lin Yi got off near the villa area. He already told Kang Xiaobo and Tang Yun that he was going to register his car in the afternoon. Lin Yi skipping classes had become a habit anyways. They didn't mind it anymore. Tang Yun couldn't do anything about it. Young Master Lin was a student like that. It was impossible for him to stay in school and study peacefully. Lin Yi drove the van without a license plate all the way to Songshan's criminal investigation unit. Coincidentally, he didn't bump into any traffic police. Otherwise, he'd have to call Ling Shan again. Ling Shan sat in her office, feeling vexed. Wuxia had been saved, but he wasn't out of danger yet. He was on a ventilator and she didn't know when he'd wake up. It wasn't easy to find a clue for the psycho murderer case, and now it was gone. Lingshan was feeling a lot of pressure. Was she really qualified for her current job? Lingshan didn't say anything sarcastic when Lin Yi came. She didn't dare offend Lin Yi. She used to rely on Huaijuan to solve cases, but now, she relied on Lin Yi. Lingshan felt that she was such a piece of trash. She couldn't solve cases without relying on others? It was a contradictory feeling. Lingshan thought that way, but she couldn't do anything about it. She copied down the van's frame number and engine number, and called the car management office to get the information on the van. The owner of the van was actually the owner of a car dealership in the second-hand car market. Chapter 296. A date at night. The owner of the car dealership waited for a couple of days, but Heibao didn't show up. He called the phone Heibao left behind, but it was turned off as well. Lingshan didn't bother explaining after hearing the owner's words. She told him to come to the police station and accompany Lin Yi to the car dealership. As long as the car wasn't stolen, Lingshan didn't care where Lin Yi got it from. Alright, you're done here. Can you fill in your statement? Lingshan said as she took out her notebook for Lin Yi. Forget it, make one up yourself. The credit's all yours anyway, I don't want any of it. Lin Yi said. No. Lingshan refused flatly. Lin Yi had killed Guanya in front of so many people, how could she give the credit back to him? What would people say then? Let me make a call. Lin Yi couldn't be bothered with her. He dialed Huaijuan's number and handed the phone to Lingshan after a few words. Listen. Lingshan took the phone from Lin Yi and listened to Huaijuan's voice. She wasn't too happy with the order, but she still nodded obediently. Got it, Chief Yang. Lingshan frowned as she handed the phone back to Lin Yi. Just what was this guy's relationship with Huaijuan? The selfless Huaijuan's image in Lingshan's heart crumbled the moment he got involved with Lin Yi. Alright, you can leave now. Lingshan said decisively. Since Huaijuan said that the credit was hers, then it was hers. The criminal police were all old subordinates of Huaijuan, and no one would object if Huaijuan gave the word. Ha, don't come looking for me next time if you're going to be like that. Lin Yi was a little pissed as well. He was a special agent and he didn't even pay for it. What was with this attitude? Lingshan glared at Lin Yi, not saying anything. What the hell are you so cocky for? Do you think you're invincible? If there's something you can't solve later, just wait and see how I'll mock and ridicule you. For now I'll endure it. Lin Yi didn't force Lingshan to say anything. To him it didn't matter if she said anything or not. After leaving the police station, Lin Yi saw a fat guy looking left and right at the entrance of the police station. Mr. Wang. Lin Yi walked over and asked. Yes, it's me. Wang Mingri greeted him with a smile. You are Captain Song's friend, right? Shall we transfer the ownership right now? Oh, let's go. Thank you, President Wang. Lin Yi nodded. Although Wang Mingri saw that Lin Yi wasn't the person who bought the car that day, since Captain Song of the criminal police team called, this person shouldn't be a problem. Captain Song wouldn't scam him for a 10,000 kwai car, so Wang Mingri didn't ask any questions and went to the car management office to help Lin Yi. Before leaving, he gave Lin Yi a business card, telling him to call him if Lin Yi wanted to buy a car in the future. Whether it was a new car or an old one, Wang Mingri knew people who could help. Lin Yi thanked him and put the business card away, getting ready to drive to school. This car was Lin Yi's private property now. He didn't need to ask for Mingyao's permission to drive it to and from school every day. Lin Yi's phone rang before he even reached school. He took it out and saw that it was Xuemin's number. Grandpa Guan? Lin Yi quickly picked up. What are you busy with? Xuemin's voice came from the other side of the phone. Nothing, I'm driving to school. What's up, Grandpa Guan? Lin Yi asked. Do you have time tonight? My granddaughter is on leave tomorrow, so I'll get her to cook a few dishes and we'll have a drink? Xuemin hadn't discussed medicine with Lin Yi in a long time, so he couldn't hold it in anymore. He didn't call Lin Yi and Lin Yi didn't come looking for him. He had no choice but to thicken his skin and call Lin Yi. Tonight? Sure. Lin Yi had wanted to talk to Xuemin about the idea of setting up a medical company, but he didn't have the time. Naturally, Lin Yi wouldn't reject Xuemin's offer, since Xuemin was calling him today. It's a deal then. I'll be waiting for you at home on time. Xuemin was very happy to hear that Lin Yi had agreed to come. No problem, I'll be there on time. Lin Yi smiled. After hanging up on Lin Yi, Xuemin called his granddaughter Guan Xin. Guan Xin had just finished her statement and was given a few days off by the director, telling her to go home and get some rest. Guan Xin's words, "Don't worry about me, hurry up and shoot, the patient in the room was stabbed by him, his life will be in danger if we don't save him now," had spread like wildfire in the hospital. Even the media came to interview her. Director Qin was very happy, his face beaming like a blooming flower. Nowadays, many reporters like to report negative things about the hospital, and Director Qin was very angry about it. But after Guan Xian's incident, Director Qin didn't back down. Who would dare say bad things about our hospital now? Our nurses were the best, and when faced with a life-threatening situation, the first thing they thought of was the patient's safety, not themselves. Of course, other than that, no one knew the details of Guanya's death. Only the police were there, and the others could only stand far away. They could hear Guan Xian scream, but they didn't know that it was Lin Yi who killed Guanya. Director Qin wanted to take care of Guan Xian because her father was a shareholder of the hospital, but he couldn't find a good reason to do so. After all, he had to make sure that the person he was promoting was convinced, right? But this time he was going to make an exception to promote Guan Xian, and no one would say anything against it. She was such an excellent nurse, who else would he promote if not her? While giving Guan Xian a day off, Director Qin had already decided to hold a meeting with the hospital's leaders in the afternoon to discuss Guan Xian's personnel changes. Wasn't the old head nurse in the inpatient department about to retire? Let's promote Guan Xian to vice head nurse first, and then wait for her to take over. As for whether Guan Xian could achieve greater things in the future, that would depend on herself. Guan Xian had just left the hospital and was about to go home when her phone rang. She took it out and saw that it was a call from her family. Guan Xian froze. Did Grandpa find out about her injury? Guan Xian frowned, cursing the hospital's leader for being a big mouth and a flatterer. She was afraid that Grandpa would be worried, so she told Director Qin not to tell her father or Grandpa about it. But why was Grandpa calling so soon? Grandpa. Guan Xian picked up the phone and called Grandpa, a little uncertain. Xian, are you on leave tomorrow? Guan Shuimin asked with a smile. Chapter 297. Guan Xian's thoughts: ask old Qin for a day off later and go home early. Guan Shuimin said with a smile. Go home early? What's up? Guan Xian paused. It looked like her grandfather really didn't know what had happened to her, nor did he know that she'd been asked to go home. A friend's coming over tonight, the handsome young man I told you about. He's so young but his medical skills are amazing. Guan Shuimin smiled. I'd like to introduce you two to each other. He's about the same age as you, so you two should have something in common. Oh. Guan Xian lost interest as soon as she heard that. Lin Yi's figure floated into her mind once more. Guan Shuimin didn't see Guan Xian's expression, so he thought she was shy when he heard her reply. Then it's settled. When you get back, I'll have Auntie Lu buy some groceries with you. Make a few of your specialties tonight and leave a good impression. Auntie Lu was Guan Shuimin's nanny, responsible for taking care of her grandfather's daily needs and buying groceries. Guan Xian was a bit reluctant, but it wasn't right for her to not give face to someone her grandfather respected. Getting to know him was fine, but getting to know him was out of the question. Lin Yi parked the car at the food street behind the school. A man with a fierce face walked up to Lin Yi as soon as he got out. Hey kid, don't park here. School's almost over and there's a stall here. The fierce-looking man was a stinky tofu vendor on the food street, and Lin Yi had parked at his brother's stall. His brother hadn't come yet, so he couldn't let anyone else take his spot. Lin Yi frowned. He didn't think there'd be so many problems with parking. This food street belonged to his family? Even the traffic police hadn't said anything about parking here, and here someone was looking for trouble. The fierce-looking man jumped when he saw Lin Yi raise his head. Fuck, he'd gotten himself into trouble. Master Lin, it's fine, just park here. It's fine, it's fine. The ferocious-looking man had clearly seen how Lin Yi had dealt with Zhang Biaoqiao that night. How could he dare to provoke such a person? Lin Yi shook his head, feeling a little amused. Just a moment ago he was so fierce, but in the blink of an eye his face changed. Then I'll stop here? It will stop here every day. No problem. Young Master Lin, I asked my brother to change seats. How could I affect your parking? Don't worry, I'll help you look after your car. I guarantee that no one will dare to scratch your car. The fierce man patted his chest and guaranteed. It wasn't a big deal for his younger brother to change the location of his stall, but if he angered Lin Yi, it would be a big problem. When he returned to class, he was just in time for the last self-study period. Seeing that Lin Yi was back, Kang Xiaobo immediately went over. Boss, you're back. I want to talk to you about something. Talk about something? What's the matter? Say it. Lin Yi looked at Kang Xiaobo and didn't know what he wanted. Can you lend me 200 yuan? Kang Xiaobo said with some embarrassment. 200 yuan? What do you want? No way, you don't even have 200 yuan? Lin Yi was a little surprised. I spent a bit too much this month. I always went to see Xiaofan and bought a lot of snacks. Kang Xiaobo was a little embarrassed. It's the end of the month. I don't have any money. I'll pay you back next month when I get my allowance. What's fine. You can use it. Linny gave Kang Xiaobo 200 yuan. Linny still had this bit of money. I'm thinking of buying a cheaper phone for Xiaofan. 200 yuan is enough, Kang Xiaobo said. Otherwise, it's not convenient to contact her. Ha. Linny smiled. You keep the 200 yuan to spend. I'll pay for the phone. You're giving her a gift. No matter what, you have to buy a decent one. You can't just buy a 200 yuan phone, right? Thank you, boss. I won't be polite. When I'm rich in the future, I'll repay you. Kang Xiaobo didn't refuse and directly took it. I also want to buy a phone and also one for Tang Yun. Linny said. Tomorrow afternoon, let's go to the phone shop together. Okay. Alright, boss, can you lend me your phone again? Kang Xiaobo whispered. What do you want to see? Yushu or Mengyao? Linny gave this guy a knock on the head. You already have Xiaofan. Don't think too much. You can even see through this. Kang Xiaobo was a little embarrassed. It's just for the eyes. I'm not fated with the 3 school beauties. Tang Yun is my sister-in-law now. I don't dare to look around. I can only admire these 2 beauties without an owner. Study hard. Linny smiled helplessly. I won't let you look. Okay, I won't look. Kang Xiaobo was a little depressed. Tell me the truth, boss. Who does this phone belong to? Why does it look like a girl's phone? Can you tell me? Also, the Beetle last time you said it wasn't yours. I think it's a girl's too. Since you want to know so much, I'll tell you. Linny looked at Kang Xiaobo and said. The car and phone are actually Yushu's. We're living together. Xiaobo paused. TSK, Xiaobo said. Fine, I won't ask you anymore, alright? Linny shrugged. Most of the time no one believed the truth. But it was a good way to solve the problem once and for all. Kang Xiaobo wouldn't ask about this anymore. Even if he knew the truth, Linny didn't lie to him. He was living with Yushu and Mengyao as well. But, to be more precise, they were living together. Linny sent Mengyao a text after school, telling her that he had something to do and would be back later. Mengyao was already used to this type of text. She hired this guy, so why did he have so many things to do? Guan Xan was a little helpless at her grandpa's praises. If that guy was so good, why didn't he take him in as a godson or something? Why did he want her to hang out with him? Guan Xan already had someone in her heart. How could she accept someone else at a time like this? But Guan Xan couldn't tell her grandpa about this. She could only agree to it and walk to the kitchen unhappily. He wants me to cook with my heart? What? If I cook well, what if he takes a fancy to me? What should I do? Wouldn't I be looking for trouble? Guan Xan thought that she might as well make it a little worse so that he wouldn't want to eat it again. Chapter 298. Chapter 298, Guan Xueming's Selfish Motives. Guan Xan was born into a family of scholars and doctors. House Guan was now on the same level as some of the bigger houses, but Guan Xan didn't have any of the bad habits of a rich young miss. Her parents were busy with work, and her father was a shareholder of the hospital, but his company was out of town. It was rare for him and his mother to come home. Guan Xan had been by her grandfather's side since she was young, so she learned how to clean the house, wash clothes and cook. She managed the house neatly, and although Nanny Lu was there, Guan Xan would always help Nanny Lu every time she came home. Her cooking skills were superb, and she was known as the super invincible beauty god of cooking in the family area of the medical school. Whenever Guan Xan cooked, her grandfather's old friends would shamelessly come over to eat with her. Guan Xan's cultured and refined demeanor made her the object of admiration for all the boys her age in the medical school's family area. However, the Guan family's strict upbringing forbade dating before graduation, so many admirers were deterred from pursuing her. Guan Xueming, on the other hand, entered society and started working after graduation. It was just that Guan Xueming's reputation was getting bigger and bigger, and those old friends who came to visit him stopped bringing it up. Guan Xueming's reputation was now on the same level as the bigger houses, and no one knew if Guan Xian would marry into a rich family, but Guan Xian was a good wife and loving mother. She was definitely the first choice for a rich family's daughter-in-law. Guan Xian breathed a sigh of relief. She'd just graduated and her career hadn't even started yet. How could she be in the mood for a relationship? But even if she wasn't in the mood, there were times when love couldn't be stopped. When Guan Xan had first developed feelings for Lin Yi, she'd found it strange and inconceivable. It was the first time she'd developed feelings for a boy, and the old Guan Xan had even thought that there was something wrong with her sexual orientation. Perhaps she was just a little late in her development? Guan Xan comforted herself, but she felt that there was no longer any possibility between her and Lin Yi. She'd fantasized about it, but reality was reality. Guan Xan had chosen to run away from him the first time she saw him. But after running away, she couldn't help but want to see Lin Yi again. It was a conflicted feeling. She knew that it was impossible, but she still wanted to see him. It was like a moth flying into a flame. It was somewhat impulsive and irrational, but it was uncontrollable. Xin, do you need Auntie Lu's help? Auntie Lu's voice came from outside the kitchen. After tidying up the house, Auntie Lu came to help Guan Xan in the kitchen. No need, I can do it myself. Guan Xan rejected Auntie Lu's offer of help, but she couldn't let Auntie Lu come. If Auntie Lu saw her cooking secret, she'd definitely stop her from messing around. Auntie Lu didn't think much about it. She knew that Master Guan was going to introduce a handsome young man to Guan Xan. Auntie Lu thought that Guan Xan was tempted and wanted to show off her invincible cooking skills. If someone were to help, how would they show off the super invincible young god of cooking in the universe? One had to admit that Guan Xan's cooking skills were excellent. Even though the seasoning was messed up, the dishes were still delicious and tasteless. If one didn't taste it and just looked at the appearance, it would definitely make one salivate. Whether it was the color or the fragrance, they were all excellent. But after one taste, one would find that every dish was either salty, sour, or sweet. In short, none of the dishes had a normal taste. Before Guan Xan took the dishes out of the wok, she would add a random seasoning to the dishes. Guan Xuemin looked at Guan Xan, who was busy cooking, and he was happy. Such a virtuous, beautiful, gentle, and well-mannered granddaughter should be able to make Lin Yi enjoy it so much that he forgot to go home, right? If Guan Xan came to his house a few more times, all the medical problems he had would be solved by her. If Guan Xuemin could become his grandson-in-law, the Guan clan would be prosperous for the next 100 years. Although the Guan clan's status was comparable to the big houses, and even the heads of the big houses were respectful to them, Guan Xuemin knew very well that it was all because of him. He was Miracle Dr. Guan, and that was why the Guan clan's status was so high. Everyone would die one day, and knowing a miracle doctor was the same as having a guarantee of life. This was also why the Guan clan's status had risen so quickly these past few years. But if Guan Xuemin was gone one day, the Guan clan's status would plummet. Without a miracle doctor, the Guan clan would be no different from a normal small family. Although Guan Xuemin wasn't someone who cared about fame and fortune, he couldn't not think about his children and grandchildren. Especially his granddaughter, Guan Xuemin was even more worried about her. Finding a good husband for her had become his main concern. Looking at Lin Yi reminded him of Guan Xan. If his granddaughter could be with Lin Yi, then the Guan clan's reputation wouldn't fall because of his passing, but would instead rise. Guan Xuemin knew very well, what kind of miracle doctor was he? Lin Yi was the miracle doctor. And that miracle doctor he met 20 years ago. That was the real deal. His eldest son's family had settled in Yanjing, living a wealthy life. His youngest son and his wife were busy with business, and only their daughter Guan Xan was by their side. Guan Xuemin didn't have much to worry about with his two sons. His eldest son didn't have any skills, but he'd made quite a bit of money through Guan Xuemin's connections, enough for them to live the rest of their lives. Guan Xuemin didn't have a good impression of his eldest son, and he didn't want to return to a small place like Songshan ever since he'd been exposed to the upper class. He only came back once during the holidays, which disappointed Guan Xuemin quite a bit. His youngest son, on the other hand, came back often, and was a righteous person, albeit a bit old-fashioned. He relied on his own ability to do business and never mentioned Guan Xuemin's name outside. Logically speaking, with his youngest son's personality, if he didn't have any background or backing, he would definitely be disadvantaged in society. However, his luck wasn't bad. In his early years he met a benefactor, a legendary figure. Unfortunately, this person also disappeared from everyone's sight in the same year as the genius doctor who had taught Guan Xuemin, becoming a legend. XN, there's no need to make so many dishes. It's enough to eat. Guan Xuemin was a bit puzzled as he watched his granddaughter run around, preparing a table full of delicacies. Had his granddaughter really grown up? Was she starting to care about her marriage? Was she going to show off in front of this young man? Chapter 299. How about instant noodles? His youngest son had received guidance from a great benefactor, and his business had grown considerably, but Guan Xuemin's only regret was that there was no one in the family who studied medicine. His granddaughter's weak personality meant that she could only be a nurse, and she wasn't cut out to study medicine either. That was why Guan Xuemin had always wanted to find someone to pass on his legacy to, or he wouldn't have been so surprised to see Lin Yi at the bookstore and wanted to take Lin Yi as his last disciple. But that thought was gone now. His medical skills weren't even a third of Lin Yi's, so what was the point of passing on his legacy? It wasn't even certain who would be whose teacher. But no matter what, Guan Shuimin had something to look forward to. Ding! The doorbell rang. Lin Yi parked the car in front of Guan Shuimin's villa and pressed the doorbell. Guan Shuimin was overjoyed at the ring. He quickly stood up and waved at Auntie Lu, who was about to open the door. He'd open the door himself. Guan Shuimin didn't dare put on any airs when it came to Lin Yi. There was no such thing as learning, and Lin Yi was better than him. Lin Yi, you're here. Guan Shuimin said happily when he opened the door and saw Lin Yi. Ah, nice to meet you, Grandpa Guan. I came right after school and didn't bring any gifts, so please don't mind me. Lin Yi smiled as he spread his empty hands. Other people brought gifts when they came to Guan Shuimin's house, but Lin Yi came empty-handed. What gifts? Guan Shuimin was amused by Lin Yi's words. I'm happy that you're here. It wasn't easy for me to be so thick-skinned as to call you and invite you over for a drink or two. If you keep being so polite, I won't call you again no matter how thick-skinned I am. Ah, all right, then I'll come over when I'm free, Lin Yi said with a smile. That's more like it. Guan Shuimin nodded matter-of-factly. Guan Xian was walking out of the kitchen with a plate of sweet and sour mustard fish in her hands when she heard someone boasting that he could come over for free food. She wasn't happy at all. Who are you? You're here to freeload? Did he really not treat himself as an outsider? All right, since you came to eat, I'll let you eat your fill. Let's see if you dare to come again next time. Tonight's sour, sweet, bitter, spicy, and numbing feast will definitely be fresh in your memory. However, the voice sounded familiar. Had it been to his house before? Guan Xian frowned but didn't pay much attention to it. She was just about to put the fish on the table when she looked up and froze, almost dropping the fish on the floor. What? Lin Yi? Guan Xian's eyes widened in disbelief. Why was he the one who wanted to freeload all the time in the future? Guan Xian? Lin Yi was startled. What was Guan Xian doing here? He suddenly remembered what Guan Shuimin had said about his granddaughter. Could Guan Xian be his granddaughter? Both of them had the same surname. Your Grandpa Guan's granddaughter? You're the handsome young man Grandpa was talking about? Guan Xian blushed. Why was he the handsome young man Grandpa was talking about? Didn't he already have a girlfriend? Why was Grandpa introducing him to her? Guan Xian didn't know what to do. She wanted to hide her feelings for Lin Yi from the bottom of her heart, but she lowered her head shyly. Handsome young man? Lin Yi paused at the title and smiled bitterly. I'm not considered a young genius, but I'm young and promising. I can barely call myself that. Bragging. Guan Xian couldn't help but smile. What kind of person was this immodest? Wasn't handsome young and promising about the same? Grandma Wang was praising herself for selling her melons. You know Xian? Guan Shuimin was afraid that his granddaughter would be conflicted, but he understood after seeing her expression. It seemed like the two knew each other a long time ago, so he was worrying needlessly. Yes, we just met today. Lin Yi nodded. Oh, just met today? Looks like we're very close. Guan Shuimin listened to Lin Yi's words. That saves me the trouble of introducing myself. Since you know Xian, it's even easier. Let's skip the introductions and eat. I've been starving for a long time. I eat early every day and I waited until now just to wait for you. All right. I won't hold back then. Lin Yi smiled as he turned to Guan Xian. What a coincidence, I was supposed to try out your cooking today. Ah. Guan Xian jumped and ran towards the kitchen with the mustard fish in her hands. She never would have thought that the handsome young man Grandpa was talking about was Lin Yi. She wouldn't have made these weird dishes if she'd known earlier. She would have prepared with all her heart and skills if she'd known earlier. Guan Xian regretted it a little. If Lin Yi ate the feast she prepared, he'd probably never come again. What should she do? Guan Xian wanted to throw away all the dishes on the table and make a new one. Xian, where are you going? Why are you taking the fish away? Grandpa loves sweet and sour fish the most. Bring it back, Grandpa can't wait. Guan Shuimin waved his hand at Guan Xian. I'm going back to the pot. The dishes are cold, I'm going back to the pot. Guan Xian said as she tried to grab the other dishes from the table. She could just throw them away and make a new one. There were still some ingredients left so she could make as much as she could. Back to the pot? Back to what pot? It's not cold, it's steaming. Stop messing around and put it down. Guan Shuimin was confused by Guan Xian's actions. What was she doing? Oh. Guan Xian didn't have a choice. She reluctantly put down the dishes and the sweet and sour fish. Alright Xin, you sit down too. Let's eat together. Guan Shuamin couldn't wait to open a bottle of Maotai and pour a cup for Lin Yi before pouring one for himself. Oh, alright. Guan Xin was reluctant, but there was nothing she could do. She sat down with a sad face. I've heard from Grandpa Guan that you're a great cook. The dishes on the table are delicious. Let me try them. Lin Yi smiled as he picked up his chopsticks. Grandpa, I have an idea. Why don't we eat instant noodles? Drinking wine and eating instant noodles is delicious, right? What do you think? Guan Xin suddenly stood up. I haven't had instant noodles in a long time. Why don't we throw away all the dishes? Chapter 300. Absolutely disgusting. What the hell are you doing, XNXN? There's so much good food here, why are you eating instant noodles? Shuamin was getting a little pissed off. Lin Yi was a guest he'd invited. Even if the two of them knew each other or had some sort of conflict, there was no need to be like this. And no. Guan Xin stuck her tongue out, a little embarrassed. Do you want instant noodles, Lin Yi? Me? I'm fine. Lin Yi was a little puzzled. Why was Guan Xin so insistent on him eating instant noodles? He didn't want to turn her down either, so he answered without thinking. That's great. I like it too. I'll go make 2 buckets. Guan Xin was a little happy at Lin Yi's answer. I'll go right now. Guan Xin, sit there. Shuamin was so angry that he didn't even bother calling her XNXN anymore, choosing to just call her by her full name. Oh. Guan Xin felt wronged but couldn't tell him the real reason. She could only sit down gloomily. If she'd known this would happen, she wouldn't have made the food so disgusting. Even if she'd just cooked it casually, it would still have been delicious. I haven't had instant noodles in a long time, I kind of miss the taste. Lin Yi smiled. Grandpa Guan, don't be mad, Guan Xion's just too passionate. Guan Xian looked at Lin Yi gratefully. She was about to poison him to death, but he was still helping her out. What a nice guy. Yeah, he wouldn't have taken a bullet for her if he wasn't a nice guy, and he wouldn't have risked his life to save her today. Girls in their prime always like to fantasize about having a Prince Charming by their side. It was the dream of every girl her age, and it was obvious that Lin Yi wasn't as good as she thought he was, but Guan Xen had taken it upon herself to make Lin Yi her Prince Charming. In fact, it was very simple for Lin Yi to block the bullet. No matter who was behind him, he just didn't want to hurt the innocent. Even if it wasn't Guan Xen who was kidnapped, Lin Yi would have done it if it was anyone else he was familiar with. If Guan Xen knew that Lin Yi acted so quickly in exchange for a kiss from Tang Yun, what would she think? Looking at his granddaughter's grateful expression towards Lin Yi, Shuamin was even more surprised this time. These two didn't seem to have a conflict, did they? What kind of relationship was that? Why is Xingxin acting so weird today? Lin Yi actually cooperated? Alright, let's not talk so much. Since you're familiar with it, let's eat it. I'll go first. Guan Shuamin picked up a piece of sweet and sour fish with his chopsticks. Guan Xian wanted to stop him, but it was too late. She could only grimace and wait for her grandpa's scolding. This fish is very tender, not bad. Guan Shuamin's eyes widened as he spat out the fish in his mouth. He gasped, what's in it? I am my old life. Shuamin thought that the fish was soft and tasty when it first entered his mouth, but the next moment, a wave of spiciness rushed to his nostrils and almost made him cry. Grandpa, I'm sorry. Guan Xian hurriedly passed a bottle of water to Shuamin. I accidentally knocked over the mustard. Knocked over the mustard? Shuamin took a sip of water to catch his breath. Then why did you bring it here? Didn't you kill Grandpa? I said I was going to cook it again. Grandpa, you didn't let me? Guan Xian said carefully. Alright. Forget it, we'll pass on the sweet and sour fish. Have Auntie Lu take it away, we'll eat something else. Shuamin waved his hand helplessly. I'm sorry, I made a fool of myself in front of you. Come, let's eat something else. XN isn't usually like this, she might have been a bit careless when she heard that a handsome young man like you was coming. She's pretty good at cooking, why don't you try some? Lin Yi looked oddly at the sweet and sour fish Auntie Lu was taking away. Knocked over the mustard? Lin Yi picked up his chopsticks and picked up a piece of stir-fried pork with bamboo shoots. He was just about to eat when Guan Xen said, Wait? ? Lin Yi turned to Guan Xian. Let's just eat instant noodles? Guan Xian said weakly. Lin Yi had a rough idea of what was going on by now. He stuffed the bamboo shoot into his mouth. It was very salty. Lin Yi picked up a few dishes closer to him and tasted them. They were either too sweet or too spicy. None of them were tasty. What do you think? Not bad, right? Guan Shuamin, on the other hand, was waiting for Lin Yi's praise. As long as he had Lin Yi's appetite, he wouldn't have to worry about Lin Yi stopping by to discuss medical matters with him. It's not bad. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Chem? Shuamin paused. Wasn't Lin Yi's expectations a bit too high? And this was just not bad? Which of his old friends didn't praise his granddaughter Xian's cooking? Even their children and grandchildren were shameless enough to come here for free meals. His granddaughter was hailed as the invincible beauty goddess of cooking in the family quarters. But since it was Lin Yi who said it, Shuamin couldn't argue with him. After all, Lin Yi was his teacher now. Your taste is pretty high. This old man thinks it's not bad already, Shuamin said as he picked up another dish. I taste. That's high? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He'd already made up his mind by saying that it was okay, but he'd said something against his will. Shuamin spat out a mouthful of stir-fried pork with bamboo shoots. He quickly drank a mouthful of water and said, XN, did you kill the salt cellar? Guan Xn lowered her head in embarrassment, not daring to look at her grandpa and Lin Yi. Today was too embarrassing. Shuamin quickly tried a few other dishes with his chopsticks and spat them out again. He finally understood that Lin Yi's not bad was already praising today's food. Today's food couldn't even be described as bad, it was unbelievably bad. XN, this food. Shuamin's eyes widened. You don't usually cook like this? Grandpa Guan, maybe XN was frightened today? Lin Yi wanted to say a few words to comfort Guan Xn, but she cut him off. Guan Xn didn't want her grandpa to know what happened at the hospital today. It'd make him worry, so she cut Lin Yi off and said her real purpose. Grandpa, I'm sorry. I actually did it on purpose. On purpose? You made it this bad on purpose? What's going on? Shuamin blinked, not expecting Guan Xn to say that. Chapter 301. Xn's bias. I think he wouldn't want to come back after tasting my cooking. He's afraid of being poisoned? Guan Xn explained sheepishly. Lin Yi had more or less guessed Guan Xn's intentions. Guan Shuamin had praised his granddaughter to Lin Yi more than once, saying that she was a good cook and a well-mannered person. Lin Yi naturally understood the old man's intentions. Guan Shuamin, on the other hand, must have told Guan Xn something similar back at home as well. It was only natural that Guan Xn was conflicted. Any girl wouldn't be too happy if they were told that a handsome young man was coming to their house, asking them to get to know him better. Guan Shuamin was pissed off. This was the first time he'd lost face. Lin Yi is my guest, how could you do this? It's fine if you guys know each other, but if it were someone you don't know, they'd be slamming the door and walking out already. How is this treating someone to a meal? You're trying to poison him to death. I'm sorry, Grandpa. Guan Xn lowered her head, realizing that she'd gone too far. She hadn't thought too much about it before, she'd only wanted the young man to leave as soon as possible. Now that she thought about it, where would her grandpa's face go? It's fine, Grandpa Guan. Don't blame Guan Xn. Lin Yi smiled. Actually, to tell you the truth, you kept telling me how good your granddaughter was, and I didn't even dare to visit you. It's normal for Guan Xn to feel the same way. Is that so? So I'm the one worrying too much then? Guan Shuamin thought about it for a moment. It seemed like he'd been a little too hasty, so he shook his head. Alright, let Andy Lu make a few dishes. I'll go. Guan Xn stood up, a little embarrassed. It was a bit of a shame that all the dishes on the table were picked up, but it wasn't something a normal person could eat. Lin Yi changed the topic to medicine, and Guan Shuamin quickly forgot about the previous unpleasantness. He excitedly discussed the prescription with Lin Yi. Guan Shuamin had completely forgotten what had happened when Guan Xn brought a few steaming hot dishes to the table. Xn, come pour Grandpa some wine. Guan Xn looked at Lin Yi suspiciously. Was this man really that mysterious? Not only was he skilled, but he also knew medicine? It wasn't easy for a person to receive such high praise from his grandfather. Guan Xn's subsequent dishes were quite ordinary. A plate of scrambled eggs with green onions, a plate of mushrooms, a plate of tofu, a plate of cucumber, and a bowl of sour and spicy egg soup were all served piping hot. 4 ordinary home-cooked dishes and an ordinary soup were cooked to perfection in Guan Xn's hands. Try it again this time? Guan Xn said to Lin Yi, a little embarrassed as she poured wine for her grandfather. Lin Yi nodded and picked up a piece of mushrooms with his chopsticks. He thought to himself. She's actually catching up to my level? How is it? Guan Xn didn't know if Lin Yi's was good or bad. She looked at Lin Yi nervously, waiting for his answer. But for these home-cooked dishes, Guan Xan had given it her all, bringing out the young divine chef's abilities to the extreme. I didn't think home-cooked food could be this good. Lin Yi praised. Old Lin always praised him like this. Then, eat more. Guan Xan was a little happy. She pursed her lips into a smile. Try something else? Okay. Lin Yi nodded and put a few more mouthfuls from the other dishes into his mouth. Grandpa Guan, I finally know that what you said before was true. Guan Xan really is the young divine chef. That's right. Guan Shuamin nodded. So, if you want to eat more, you'll have to come here often. No problem. Lin Yi nodded happily. Shuamin had a taste of Guan Xan's new dishes, frowning as he took a bite. Xan, aren't you being biased? I've tried these dishes before, why aren't they as good as today's? It looks like Lin Yi's treatment is different now that he's here. The poison dishes from before are upgraded to delicious food that even I've never tasted before. Grandpa. Guan Xan was a little embarrassed by Shuamin's words. Hello, it looks like you'll have to come more often. This old man will have to enjoy the delicious food with you. Guan Shuamin smiled. I'll definitely come more often. Lin Yi nodded. He was here because of Guan Shuamin's invitation, but also because he wanted to discuss the medical company with Guan Shuamin. If that were to happen, he'd have to come here more often. Guan Xan was a little embarrassed as she looked at Lin Yi. She was a little surprised but also a little lost. It seemed like she had a chance again. If he came here more often, then their relationship would definitely improve. But, was this the right thing to do? After dinner, Guan Xan went to clean up the dishes while Lin Yi and Guan Shuamin went upstairs to Guan Shuamin's study. Lin Yi's expression returned to a serious one as he closed the door. Grandpa Guan, I actually have something important to discuss with you this time. Oh? What is it? Guan Shuamin paused. He didn't think that Lin Yi would have something to discuss with him. He'd originally wanted to discuss the condition of Lu Tiany's father, Lu Jianghu, with Lin Yi. Guan Shuamin could barely control Lu Jianghu's angina, but couldn't cure it. So he wanted to discuss it with Lin Yi and see if there was anything he could come up with. But since Lin Yi had something to discuss, he'd talk about Lin Yi first. Grandpa Guan, I'd like to start a medical company and sell some Chinese medicine. Lin Yi got straight to the point. I'd like to borrow your title as Miracle Dr. Guan. You want to start a medical company? Guan Shuamin paused but didn't really care about what Lin Yi said. There's a lot of medical companies in the country right now. If I don't have any special medicine, I won't be able to make much of an impact with just my name alone. If Dr. Kong can use Golden Creation to become one of the top medical companies in the country, why can't we? Lin Yi smiled nonchalantly. He has Golden Creation so we can make rejuvenation pill and blood clotting powder. There are a lot of similar names in Wuxia novels anyways. Oh. Guan Shuamin paused. You have the recipe for Golden Creation? Chapter 302. The problem of funding. Guan Shuamin looked at Lin Yi in shock. The formula for Golden Creation had always been a top secret in the industry. No one knew about it, and while many pharmaceutical companies had paid a high price to hire Eastern physicians to do research on it, no one had been able to find the formula. But Lin Yi had a formula with similar effects? But when he thought about Lin Yi's painkiller formula, Guan Shuamin didn't doubt that Lin Yi was just joking. If he said it existed, then it definitely existed. If he said it worked, then it worked. Guan Shuamin had no doubt about that. If there really is, then with the painkiller prescription in our hands, we'll be able to compete with Miracle Dr. Kong on equal footing with these two products. Guan Shuamin nodded. He wasn't interested in business, but he was very interested in Lin Yi's formula. Grandpa Guan, I'll use my formula to buy shares, and I'll borrow your name to start a pharmaceutical company. Are you interested? Lin Yi spoke his mind. Lin Yi had a general understanding of Guan Shuamin through their few interactions. The man didn't care much for fame and fortune, and had almost no desire for it. Prescriptions, on the other hand, were very important to him. It wasn't that he wanted the formula for himself, but that he wanted to study the properties of the formula. You can use my name for free. Guan Shuamin waved a hand. I don't lack food or clothes, so money is useless to me. But do you know how much money it takes to start a pharmaceutical company? We have to get our hands on the formula, and we can't hire other factories to do it for us. We'll need a production line as well, and we'll need at least 100 million to start the company. 100 million? Lin Yi didn't have any experience in business, so he paused. That's a bit much. Do you have the money, Elder Guan? I'll take a smaller share. 100 million wasn't much to the Lin Yi of the past. Although the old man lied to him and said that a mission was only a few hundred yuan, Linny knew very well that there were many missions worth more than 100 million yuan. However, Linny did not want to haggle with his stingy old man. The old man was the one who had raised him. There was no need for him to haggle with him so clearly. But now, Linny was really short of money. He knew that without money he couldn't do anything. My money, other than enough for my daily expenses, has basically been donated to the medical industry. Xuemin smiled. You know that at my level I don't need to spend much money. The school basically covers all my daily expenses. Linny was in a bit of a dilemma. It seemed that his thinking was a bit too simple. He thought that he could make money with the formula, but he didn't think about the startup capital. If it was an investment, Linny could pull it in. He could talk to Pengzhan about the prospects of this industry. He was sure that the guy would be interested, but his company's internal problems weren't solved yet. Linny didn't want to give the formula to a company he had no confidence in. It wasn't that Linny didn't trust Pengzhan, but the problem was that the company might not even belong to Pengzhan in the future. Even if it did belong to Pengzhan, those bastard shareholders of the company were even capable of assassinating Meng Yao. There was no telling if they'd be jealous of the recipe or not. My eldest son does have the money, but I won't use it. Xuemin continued after seeing that Linny wasn't saying anything. He's a bit greedy. We can't let him participate in this. Linny paused. He wasn't expecting Xuemin to say that. Normally, people would think of their children first when there was something good, but Xuemin had rejected the possibility of letting his eldest son participate. Haha, he already has enough money to spend. I don't want to hurt him. My youngest son, Xinxin's father, is running a temporary business. He does have some money on hand, but his company isn't very big. I estimate that the total value of the entire business is only 200 to 300 million. He doesn't have that much liquid capital. So, I don't want either of them to participate in this. I'm still healthy, so it's not a big deal. But in the future. Xuemin didn't continue, but he believed that Linny would understand what he was trying to say. Indeed, Linny understood Xuemin's words. Linny was shocked. He knew that Xuemin was a righteous old man who didn't care about fame and fortune, but he didn't think that the guy would be this insightful. He'd removed his 2 family members from the equation as soon as Linny mentioned the idea of a partnership. Grandpa Guan, it's not a problem to give them some shares. Linny said, a little embarrassed. No need. Xuemin shook his head. Don't talk about them. I don't even want the shares. Linny was stunned. How can you do that? How can I borrow your reputation? You brat. Let me finish. Xuemin didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Lin Yi's words. I haven't finished yet. Okay, Grandpa Guan, go ahead. Lin Yi was familiar with Xuemin now, so he wasn't as restrained as before. In fact, the two of them had become good friends since the last time they talked about medical problems. Xin is my favorite granddaughter. If it's possible, you can just give her a small part of the shares. Xuemin said, it doesn't need to be much, just enough for her to live in the future. Of course, that's not a problem. Lin Yi agreed without hesitation. Don't be in a hurry to agree. You still have to think of a way to start your own business. Xuemin said solemnly with a wave of his hand. My name is useful in all the big houses and I can pull in a lot of investments, but you better not let anyone else have a share in this medicine company. House Kang's Golden Creations profits are enough to make people jealous, but there's nothing we can do about it. They're managing it like a family and no outsiders are involved. Xuemin continued. As long as Elder Kong is still alive, there won't be any problems. But if someone else were to get involved in your company, I can't guarantee that my name will still be effective in the face of profit. I understand, Grandpa Guan. I'll think of a way to get the funds myself. Lin Yi nodded. Xuemin didn't say anything else. 100 million seemed like a fantasy to an ordinary person, but he knew that Lin Yi wasn't an ordinary person. How could Huaijuan's teammate, someone with such miraculous medical skills, be an ordinary person? Chapter 303. The Young Miracle Doctor, It's Useless. Lin Yi waved his hand, not looking at the patient. Since it's your patient, Grandpa Guan, I'll take a look with you. All right. I'll call him and ask him to come over. Guan Xuemin nodded. Lin Yi was right. Seeing the patient wasn't as direct as looking at the patient. Having Lin Yi with Elder Lu was much better than doing research on his own. The patient's nearby? Lin Yi asked, surprised. Yeah, he lives in this district. It's only a few minutes' drive, it'll be quick. With that, Guan Xuemin picked up the phone on his desk and dialed a number. In the family compound of Songshan Medical University was a luxurious villa that was comparable to Guan Xuemin's mansion. A young man in his 20s was talking angrily to a middle-aged woman. Auntie, isn't Sun Jingyi looking down on House Wu a little too much by doing this? We're a Wulin house after all, and we're one of the 4 great guardian houses. What's House Sun? They're just a new house and I'm already giving them a lot of face by asking for their hand in marriage. But that old man's son doesn't know what's good for him, saying that he doesn't want to get involved in young people's affairs, telling me to work hard on my own. The speaker was Wu Qintian, the most promising young man in House Wu's younger generation. He was known as Little Wu Iron Fist. House Sun's business has been expanding really fast these past few years, and they have some connections in the political world. They're a new house, yes, but they have the right to stand shoulder to shoulder with the other old houses. Lu Qianni said, glaring at his nephew. But Sun Jingyi and I are childhood friends and she's gone too far. She found a boyfriend in private and made me look like a fool. Qintian said resentfully. I wouldn't have lost my wallet if it wasn't for her. People look down on me. Alright. Tian, I'll help you. Wu Huiru opened her mouth. Since your uncle's father will be staying here to recuperate for a while, I'll help you set up a company. Let's show that girl from the Sun family the talents of the Wu family's men. Thank you, Auntie. Qintian was overjoyed. He didn't know what to do in this unfamiliar city, but with his aunt's help, he'd be able to make a name for himself and show Sun Jingyi how good he was. Ring. The phone in the living room rang. It's so late, who's calling? Tianni Huiru? What if it disturbs Dad's rest? Wu Huiru complained when she heard the phone ringing. What if something happens? Tianni glared at Huiru. Huiru? This landline phone was in the previous villa. He must have called the previous owner by mistake. Wu Huiru curled her lips. Who doesn't call this phone when they know us? That's right, uncle. And he is right. Don't worry about him. Qintian was in the middle of a happy conversation with his aunt, preparing to think about how to capture Sun Jingyi's heart after setting up the company, when the phone interrupted them. Lu Qianni frowned, ignoring his wife and nephew. Hello, I'm Lu Qianni. Tianni? I'm Guan Shuamin. Bring your father over. I've invited a specialist and we're going to see if there's any possibility of a cure. Shuamin's voice came from the other side of the phone. Alright. Elder Guan, I'll bring my father over right now. Thank you. Lu Qianni nodded profusely at the words. Lu Qianni was very grateful that Shuamin was putting so much effort into his father's situation. After all, House Lu was one of the most powerful houses in the city, but that was only because old Lu Jianghu was still alive. Many people gave them face, but once old Lu passed away, House Lu would definitely fall. Tianni glared at his wife after hanging up. You almost ruined our big plan, you know? Elder Guan's invited a specialist and he's going to treat Dad. Would you be able to take responsibility if you didn't get the call? I'll go help Dad down right now. Huiru didn't dare say anything else. She lowered her head and went upstairs. Lu Qianni had become more and more manly these days, and Huiru didn't dare make a fuss anymore. Instead, she became more obedient. Be careful. Lu Qianni warned. Qintian, go with me to help your grandpa Lu down. Huiru gave Qintian a look. Old Lu was a big shot, and if he fell in love with Qintian and spoke up for Qintian at House Sun, old Sun wouldn't just give him face. Qintian understood and followed his aunt upstairs. 10 minutes later, old Lu Jianghu came down with the help of Huiru and Qintian. Lu Qianni had already parked the car in front of the villa, waiting for them to get in before driving straight to Shuamin's villa. Jianghu was no longer sleepy after hearing that a specialist was coming to treat him. His heart was filled with hope. Even an old man in his 70s would want to live a few more years. It wasn't that Jianghu was afraid of death, but that he couldn't let go of the Lius. Auntie Lu opened the door for them and invited the Lius into the villa. Shuamin and Lin Yi were waiting on the sofa in the living room, but Lin Yi paused when he saw Jianghu and Lu Qianni. He didn't expect the patient Shuamin was talking about to be Jianghu. Lu Qianni's family also saw Lin Yi on the sofa. They paused as well, but Jianghu and Lu Qianni's faces lit up with excitement. Shuamin had found this miracle doctor. Did that mean that his father's illness could be cured? But Qintian's face was very ugly. He didn't expect to see Lin Yi here, nor did he expect Lin Yi to be sitting with Miracle Dr. Guan, who was treating Grandpa Lu. He wanted to say something but held it in. This wasn't House Wu or House Lu after all, and it wasn't his place to speak. He could only look at Lin Yi with hatred. Miracle Doctor. I didn't expect to see you here, it's great. Lu Qianni was a little excited as he walked up to shake Lin Yi's hand. Lu Qianni regretted it when he heard Shuamin praise Lin Yi so much. He was in too much of a rush that day, and he didn't leave his contact number with Lu Qianni. Chapter 304. This kid is a little annoying. Lu Tianyi felt a little awkward. Who was he? Many people tried to get on his good side, and he'd taken the initiative to shake hands with Lin Yi. Now that he was being ignored, he felt a little embarrassed. But, if Lin Yi really was as miraculous as Guan Shuimin said, then it was normal for a miracle doctor to put on airs. He was someone many people wanted to get on his good side after all. It was normal that he didn't like him. Uncle. Don't get tricked by him. I know this kid, he's not a miracle doctor. Chen Tian was getting angry at his uncle's respect for Lin Yi. He's Sun Jingyi's boyfriend. A liar. Chen Tian found it hard to connect the title of miracle doctor with Lin Yi. The kid didn't look like a miracle doctor at all, and he'd asked Sun Jingyi about what Lin Yi did for a living. Sun Jingyi tried her best to cover it up, but Chen Tian still got the gist of it. The kid didn't have a proper job and was unemployed. Otherwise, with Sun Jingyi's personality, there was no way she wouldn't brag about her boyfriend's good points. If Lin Yi really was a miracle doctor, Sun Jingyi would have used this to attack him already. Why would she hide it? This was why Chen Tian dared to make things difficult for Lin Yi. As far as he was concerned, Lin Yi was no miracle doctor. These people must have been tricked by Lin Yi. Lu Tianyi, Huiru and Guan Shuimin all looked at Lin Yi, surprised. Fine, I'm a liar. What no one expected was for Lin Yi to admit it. Since there are people who don't want to see me, then I'll take my leave. Grandpa Guan, I'll come visit again. With that, Lin Yi stood up and prepared to leave. What a joke, Lin Yi didn't owe the Lius anything. He only treated Elder Lu because of Guan Shuimin, and since they called him a liar, Lin Yi couldn't be bothered to explain himself. I'm too lazy to treat you if you call me a liar. Go look wherever you want, we'll meet again. Haze. Guan Shuimin sighed. He wasn't angry at Lin Yi's actions, but he didn't like Chen Tian's behavior. He didn't know what relationship this kid had with Lu Tianyi. Why did he bring him here to embarrass himself? Great, now that you've pissed him off, he won't treat your old man anymore. What are you going to do now? In terms of age, Chen Tian was a few years older than Lin Yi, but in Shuimin's eyes, Chen Tian was just a kid. Lin Yi, on the other hand, was his old friend, his teacher. Lin Yi walked towards the entrance of the villa without any hesitation. Guan Shuimin didn't stop him. Lu Tianyi was stunned for a moment, but then he panicked. They had finally found Lin Yi. How could they let him go just like that? Lu Tianyi couldn't care less about his identity. He stepped forward and grabbed Lin Yi. Little magic doctor, please wait. Why should I stay? Lin Yi pursed his lips. What if someone calls me a liar? Pa. Lu Tianyi slapped Huiru's face. He may be Chen Tian's uncle, but Chen Tian was still a member of House Wu, and a rising star of the younger generation at that. He couldn't discipline him directly, so he vented his anger on his wife, who was also a Wu. It was natural for a man to discipline his wife. Even if the Wu family knew about it, they wouldn't say anything. After Wu Huiru married into the Lu family, she would be a member of the Lu family. Look at your nephew, what did you do? What did you do? Tianyi roared, frustrated. You're the perfect example of a loving aunt ruining her nephew. Huiru was stunned by Tianyi's sudden slap, but she realized that she shouldn't have brought Chen Tian with her when she regained her composure. She pissed off the little miracle doctor, and if the brothers of House Lu found out about it, they'd all divorce her as their sister-in-law. Bah! Huiru slapped Chen Tian's face. What nonsense are you talking about? If you keep this up, I'll call my brother and tell you to go home. Chen Tian didn't dare say anything after being slapped by his aunt. There were many rules in a big family, and it was natural for the elders to discipline the younger ones. Chen Tian lowered his head and focused all his hatred on Lin Yi. As far as he was concerned, all of this was because of Lin Yi. Little magic doctor, you see? Lu Tianyi had already made his stance as he looked at Lin Yi with pleading eyes. Yes, pleading. Curing his father's illness was his biggest wish. Oh, this kid's a bit annoying. I don't want to see him anymore. Lin Yi glanced at Chen Tian. Huiru, why aren't you taking Chen Tian out? Lu Tianyi glared at Huiru. Why was she so insensible? You can see that the little magic doctor hates your nephew. Why don't you make him disappear from the doctor's sight? Oh, okay. Huiru pushed Chen Tian. Tian, let's go out first. Chen Tian humphed, unsatisfied. He looked at Lin Yi viciously and mouthed, just you wait, before leaving the villa with Huiru. Lin Yi didn't even look at Chen Tian. Who cared what he said? There were many people who wanted to humiliate him, but none of them got what they wanted. Of course, that was unless his old man could torture him to the point where he couldn't do anything about it. Little divine doctor, that disappointing kid has already been driven out by me. Can you treat my father now? Lu Tianyi asked carefully as he looked at Lin Yi. Did I say I'm going to treat your father? Lin Yi looked at Lu Qianni. Was there something wrong with this guy's head? When did he say he was going to treat his father? That's... Qianni's face froze as he groaned inwardly. Indeed, Lin Yi never promised to treat his father. He only said he hated Xintian. Little magic doctor, can you please take a look at my father? Previously, if my nephew had offended you, I apologize on his behalf. It wasn't easy to make Lu Qianni humble himself like this. But he really did put all his hopes on Lin Yi. After seeing Lin Yi's miraculous skills with his own eyes, plus Xuemin's respect for Lin Yi, Lu Qianni didn't doubt that Lin Yi was the real deal. If it were anyone else, even a miracle doctor, Lu Qianni wouldn't act like this. But Lu Qianni didn't dare underestimate this young man who was called a specialist by Guan Xuemin and Miracle Dr. Guan. Especially with Lin Yi's temper. It was normal for powerful people to have a temper, and Lu Qianni understood that. He was sure that Lin Yi was a master. Chapter 305. A rip-off. The crowd went into an uproar at Lin Yi's words. Even Guan Xuemin was staring at Lin Yi in shock. Elder Lu could live for another 8 to 10 years if he could keep his condition under control, but that was under the condition that the angina wouldn't act up again. An old man at Jianghu's age would be at the end of his rope after another 8 to 10 years. Even Hua Tuo himself wouldn't be able to change his fate. And this, how could it be said that even if he was cured, it would all be for naught? Sickness and death were part and parcel of human nature. It was normal for descendants to die 8 to 10 years later. Ah, young man, you're right. In another 8 to 10 years I'll be buried. That's only natural. However, if you can let this old man not be tormented by illness in these few years, this old man will be eternally grateful. Jianghu was no longer afraid of death at his age, and Lin Yi wasn't wrong. Most importantly, Jianghu knew very well that this daughter-in-law of his had offended Lin Yi from the start, and her nephew had offended Lin Yi as well. Would he still be able to treat him? Treat? For your sake I'll reluctantly do it, but there'll be a fee. The only person Lin Yi had a good impression of was Elder Lu. No matter what, the old man knew how to repay kindness. He'd even invited Lin Yi to Yanjing a while back, so Lin Yi had a good impression of him. Still, Lin Yi wasn't in a good mood if he agreed to treat just like that, so he came up with a compromise. A fee? Not a problem. Lu Qianni nodded quickly after hearing Lin Yi's terms. It was only right and proper to pay for treatment, so Lu Qianni had no objections. Excuse me, young miracle doctor. How much does it cost? 10 million a year. Lin Yi said. It takes a year to cure? But 10 million? Alright, no problem. Lu Qianni hesitated for a moment, but he still nodded. Although 10 million was not a small number, it was nothing compared to his father's health. Are you sick? Lin Yi frowned after listening to Lu Qianni's words. I said 10 million a year, not a total of 10 million. Ah. Lu Qianni was stunned, and his heart was burning with anger. He also guessed that Lin Yi might be taking advantage of his misfortune, but there was nothing he could do. He had directly offended Lin Yi, and it was almost impossible to make Lin Yi relent. He didn't dare to show his dissatisfaction because if he did, Lin Yi might not treat him even if he offered money. Then how much does it cost? Didn't I just say it? He can still live for 8 to 10 years. Don't you know how to calculate it yourself? Lin Yi looked at Lu Qianni with disdain. Then, isn't that 80 million? Lu Qianni was shocked. This was really a large number. 80 million? Lin Yi couldn't help but be amused. Well, if you want your old man to suddenly get sick after 8 years, then 80 million. Anyway, if he doesn't die after 8 years, he will definitely die when the disease breaks out. This? Lu Qianni couldn't help but smile bitterly after listening to Lin Yi's words. Lin Yi seems to want 100 million from me. If it's 100 million, then it's better to say it clearly. It seems that I am reluctant to spend money on my father. He can't guarantee that his father can only live for 8 years. According to what Lin Yi said, 80 million is only for 8 years. If he suddenly dies after 8 years, then he is not a filial son. Guan Xuemin also understood at this moment, and his expression was a little strange. He just told Lin Yi that there is no startup capital, and now the startup capital is here? Lin Yi really extorted a lot of money. Although Guan Xuemin knew that Lin Yi was just using this as a pretext to make a fuss, who asked the Lu family to offend Lin Yi? Guan Xuemin didn't say anything. In this situation, it was not appropriate for him to interrupt. Elder Guan, you see. Lu Qianni was a little helpless. If it was 10 million he could take it out immediately, but if it was 100 million he also had to plan. Isn't it a little too much? Therefore he wanted Guan Xuemin to help him. Mr. Lu, you really overestimate me. Guan Xuemin shook his head. My relationship with Lin Yi can only be regarded as a teacher and a friend. I can't interfere with him or anything. A teacher and a friend? That's half a teacher if you ask. Tianyi paused a little helplessly. I'll be honest with you, House Lu is a big house, but it'd be hard for us to take out 100 million in cash. What would you ask your teacher to do? Guan Shuamin smiled bitterly. Lu Tianyi was stunned, not understanding what Guan Shuamin was saying. Lily is half a teacher to me. Guan Shuamin didn't feel embarrassed at all. Shuamin didn't feel embarrassed at all. He was a man of honor and he respected Lin Yi's medical skills. He wouldn't hide anything just because he was afraid of losing face. What? Lu Tianyi was shocked and looked at Lin Yi in disbelief. Guan Shuamin actually said that Lin Yi is his teacher? Oh, how is that possible? However, Lu Tianyi was a person who had seen the world and he immediately understood. Yes, even Guan Shuamin couldn't do anything about his father's illness, so how could his student do anything? The only possibility was that Lin Yi was better than Guan Shuamin. That's all I have to say. Guan Shuamin waved his hand. I've already introduced Lil Yi to you, and it's up to you whether you want to treat him or not. But don't worry, even if you don't take out the 100 million, I will still do my best. If possible, I will ask Lil Yi for help. 100 million, okay. No problem. Having figured out the relationship between Lin Yi and Guan Shuamin, Lu Tianyi agreed without hesitation. Although it was difficult for the Lu family to take out 100 million in cash, they could sell off some of their stocks and real estate to get the amount. As the core figure of the Lu family, his father couldn't be harmed. As long as his father was healthy and alive, the Lu family had hope. All right, call me when you have the money ready. Lin Yi nodded and got straight to the point. You can find me if you want to talk to Grandpa Guan. I'll be going now, it's getting late. All right, Miracle Dr. Lin, do you need me to send you off? Lu Tianyi had already thrown caution to the wind. It was only 100 million, right? Compared to his father's health, it really wasn't much. House Lu was different from other rising houses, and the reason why they were doing so well was because of Lu Jianhu's connections and reputation. Lu Tianyi wanted to send Lin Yi off because he wanted to know where Lin Yi lived. He wasn't worried about the 100 million anymore, he was worried that Lin Yi would go back on his word. Chapter 306. Parting on bad terms, all right. Shuamin nodded. Be careful on the road. You've been drinking, so if you're driving, I've been awake for a while now. Do I look drunk to you, Grandpa Guan? Lin Yi smiled. Drinking? Lin Yi rarely got drunk. Ever since he started practicing the art of dragon mastery, Lin Yi's tolerance for alcohol had increased as well. The old man at home often dragged Lin Yi to drink with him, but it was always old Lin who was completely drunk after the drinks, while Lin Yi was completely fine. Old Lin was quite annoyed by this. Drinking with someone who couldn't get drunk wasn't fun at all. In the end, old Lin stopped allowing Lin Yi to drink, telling him to drink plain water instead. The reason was simple. He thought Lin Yi was wasting alcohol, and since drinking was the same as drinking water, he might as well drink water instead. Shuamin nodded. Lin Yi didn't look drunk at all. What he'd done to House Lu just now was enough to make them lose their temper. After Lin Yi left, Lu Tianyi let out a long sigh and smiled bitterly at Shuamin. Elder Guan, I'm sorry for all the trouble I've caused. After all, Lu Tianyi had come to Shuamin for treatment. Now that he'd switched to Lin Yi, it was a little disrespectful. While Lin Yi had been introduced by Shuamin, Lu Tianyi still had to explain himself. He'd been too polite to Lin Yi earlier, and he was worried that Shuamin might have some ulterior motives. Lin Yi was a miracle doctor, but so was Shuamin. Lu Tianyi didn't want to offend him. Shuamin waved his hand. I don't have the ability, but I hope my patient can get better. Did you guys know Lin Yi before? He's the one who saved my father's life I told you about last time. Lu Tianyi explained. So, this is why I believe that he can cure my father's illness. Alright, heaven wings. Jianghu spoke up at this time. When you raise money, give Professor Guan an extra 2 million. Okay, Dad. Lu Tianyi quickly nodded. Forget about my consultation fee. I didn't cure your illness. Guan Shuamin waved his hand and was about to refuse. No matter what, you've helped me for so many days. You should give me the money. Jianghu said. In his eyes, Shuamin's referral fee was acceptable. Alright then, I'll accept it. Shuamin thought about it. He'd just gotten 100 million from Lin Yi, but he'd opened a company and might need more money. 2 million was good enough, and so he accepted the money. After a few more words, Lu Tianyi stood up and left. It was getting late and Shuamin seemed to have drunk quite a bit. He didn't want to disturb his rest. On the way back, Huiru heard that Lin Yi had asked for 100 million. She was shocked. House Wu was a powerful house, but they were still one of those hidden houses that specialized in ancient martial arts. They didn't have many industries, and 100 million was enough to last them for a few years. Uncle, that Linny is a liar. He's Sun Jingyi's boyfriend. How could he be a miracle doctor? Don't let him trick you. Qin Tian was pissed off at Lin Yi's demand. If he let Lin Yi get 100 million, how was he going to compete with Lin Yi? Sun Jingyi wouldn't even look at him in the eye when the time came, and the funny thing was that this was all caused by his uncle's family. Wu Qintian, what are you talking about? What do you know? Shut up. Lu Tianyi was angry at his nephew for being so immature. Don't you think you've caused enough trouble? You've already offended Miracle Dr. Lin. Do you want to kill your grandpa, Lu? Uncle, I'm doing this for your own good. If you don't want to listen, then forget it. I won't bother you anymore. Qintian's stubborn young master's temper flared up. He was the most promising of the younger generation in House Wu, the one who had the highest chance of reaching Mystic and Iron Fist arts, so he was respected everywhere in the house. He had never been humiliated like this before. Dad, don't be rash. Apologize to your uncle. Huiru was panicking and quickly pulled Qintian's hand. Apologize. Qintian smiled coldly. And since uncle looks down on House Wu, then forget it. Do you want to come back with me or stay here? Tian, stop it. Huiru didn't expect Qintian to be this angry. All right, Aunt, since you're already a part of House Lu, I won't force you. Qintian's eyes flashed with determination. Stop the car, I'm getting off. Lu Tianyi naturally wouldn't let Qintian do as he pleased. He stopped the car by the roadside and smiled coldly. Since this Wu kid didn't know what was good for him, then he shouldn't blame him for being ruthless. Other things were fine, but his father's illness was involved. He wouldn't be nice to Qintian. House Wu, even if he was from House Wu, he was just a junior. How dare he be so arrogant in front of him? Lu Tianyi was furious. Huiru, you're going back with him? I won't be messing around with Tian anymore. Huiru sighed helplessly. She knew that from today onwards, there would be a rift between House Wu and House Lu. But now that she was a daughter-in-law of House Lu, she had to stand on House Lu's side. This was the foundation of being a wife. She'd be laughed at if she messed around with House Wu. She wanted to mediate, but she didn't know how. It was normal for Qintian to be angry, but Lin Yi was Sun Jingyi's boyfriend. That alone was enough for Qintian to not be nice to him. But Lin Yi was someone who could save his father-in-law, and this wasn't going to be easy to mediate. Huiru, go and send him off. He's your nephew after all. Jianghu, who hadn't spoken until now, spoke up. He didn't want to say anything about House Wu's business. As the head of House Lu, he couldn't interfere with House Wu's business. What happened to House Wu's nephew would be handled by House Wu, and it wasn't up to others to say anything. Yes, Dad. Huiru nodded and sent Qintian off the car. She whispered after 2 steps, Tian, don't do anything rash. That Lin Yi's really good at medicine. And you're helping him too? Qintian humphed unhappily. If you want to deal with him, at least wait until he heals my father-in-law's illness. To be honest, I'm really pissed off that he's asking for so much. If you can get that 100 million back for me, I'm sure Uncle would be happy to see it too. Huiru said softly. Chapter 307. Pengzhan's dilemma. Huiru, on the other hand, was a very selfish woman. As far as she was concerned, letting a little-known doctor like Lin Yi treat her illness was already giving him a lot of face. If he were to really be cured, wouldn't there be countless rich people coming to him for treatment once he was promoted to the upper class? How much money would he have then? Asking for 100 million right now was practically extortion. Since when had House Lu ever been taken advantage of like this? Even if he was a miracle doctor, a few million would be the most he'd get. Fine then. Since you dare ask for it, you'd have to be able to keep it first. Of course, Tianyi would have exploded if he'd known how selfish and short-sighted his wife was. 100 million wasn't a small amount, but it was worth it to gain the friendship of a miracle doctor just like that. It was worth it. Wouldn't there be a day when you'd get old and sick? Would you still be begging Lin Yi then? What a wastrel with water in her head. But evidently, Lu Tianyi didn't know that yet, and it was too late for him to stop Qintian from going against Lin Yi. Pengzhan was very pissed today. Gubang was calling for a board meeting to elect a new chairman. Pengzhan's heart turned cold at the thought of Gubang and Guangguo's relationship yesterday. It was the first time he'd felt so powerless. He couldn't control the situation anymore. Pengzhan was still full of confidence before the board meeting yesterday, confident that he'd be able to get rid of the parasite in the company, slowly weakening Gubang's power and eventually kicking him out of the company. But now things weren't what he'd expected. The second and third largest shareholders of the company had formed an alliance, and their shares had already exceeded his. He wouldn't be able to handle them if they were to make things difficult for him in the board meeting. Since when had the company become like this? The company his father founded was in his hands, and he was going to hand it over to someone else? Peng Zhan hadn't told his father about the company all this time. He didn't want the company to disturb him now that his father had retired. Besides, the company wasn't a big deal to Peng Zhan. As long as he held onto the shares, he was confident that he'd be able to deal with some of the shareholders who were a little greedy and selfish. But Peng Zhan hadn't expected the shareholders to unite. He was at his wits' end. Gubang had already gone to contact the other board members with Guanghua, and there was no chance of reconciliation at all. Perhaps he wouldn't be the chairman of the company anymore in a few days. Left with no other choice, Peng Zhan dialed up his father's number. He didn't want to disturb his father, but he had no choice but to tell Elder Chu about the company's situation at this critical juncture. Elder Chu listened to Peng Zhan's words quietly, not interrupting him. He waited for him to finish, remaining silent for a while. "Dad, look." Peng Zhan felt exhausted. A third of the board had been roped in by Gubang, and even he, the chairman, couldn't stop this. Since Gubang was calling for this meeting, it meant that he had the confidence to replace him as the chairman. "Actually, I have long seen the problem with the company's board of directors." Elder Chu's voice was calm. "Peng Zhan, you're too kind and kind-hearted. That's a good point, but you have to understand that the business world is like a battlefield. Being kind to your enemy is being cruel to yourself. Everyone has greed and selfishness, and it's only natural that the board of directors would ally together to usurp power." "Then you mean?" Peng Zhan paused. His father didn't seem to want to get involved in this anymore. "Go find Linny." Elder Chu sighed softly. "Perhaps he's the only one who can help you in this situation." "Him?" Peng Zhan was surprised. "Dad, you're asking him to come, don't you mean for him and Yao Yao? Haha, he might have a way." Elder Chu didn't say it out loud, only smiling. "I understand, Dad." Peng Zhan hung up the phone. He didn't know why his father wanted him to go find Lin Yi, but he couldn't understand what Lin Yi could do in a situation like this. Lin Yi wasn't a shareholder of the company, and he didn't have any shares in his hands. Lin Yi wouldn't be able to interfere with the company's board of directors meeting, but since Elder Chu had asked him to look for Lin Yi, Peng Zhan could only give it a try. Peng Zhan really didn't expect that a business tycoon like him would fall into the trap of his father's old friend's son. Had he really been too kind? Perhaps his father was right. If he'd acted decisively when he'd first discovered the problem, perhaps this wouldn't have happened today. Some of the shareholders would have criticized him for not caring about his father's feelings, but it was still better than being at his wits' end. After some hesitation, Peng Zhan turned to Li Fu. "Go to Yao Yao's villa." "Yes, Mr. Chu." Faubert sighed. "Mr. Chu, don't be too hasty. If Elder Chu said that Lin Yi has a way, then he should have a way." "I hope so." Peng Zhan nodded. Lin Yi parked the car in front of Ming Yao's villa, and saw a Bentley turn in behind him. It was Faubert's car. Lin Yi got out of the car but didn't enter the villa. He waited for Faubert's car to park and Peng Zhan got out of the car. Peng Zhan didn't expect Lin Yi to just come back. He looked at the van Lin Yi drove, surprised. "Your car?" "Oh, I helped Lingshan catch a fugitive, that Heibao." Lin Yi didn't hide the truth. "It's Heibao's. I got the license plate from Lingshan this afternoon." Peng Zhan nodded. He didn't expect Lin Yi to have built up his own network in Songshan without anyone noticing. The fact that he was able to get the car from Lingshan meant that the two had a close relationship. Uncle Chu has something to discuss with you," Peng Zhan said with a pat on Lin Yi's shoulder. He didn't want to waste time on the car. "Oh, all right, let's talk inside?" Lin Yi said as he locked the door. Peng Zhan hesitated. "Why don't you get in my car?" Lin Yi paused but understood immediately. He nodded. "Okay." Chapter 308. Leave It to Melon Yi followed Peng Zhan into the Bentley, who lit up a cigarette and handed one to Lin Yi. Lin Yi waved his hand. "I'm not addicted, I don't like smoking." Peng Zhan didn't mind as he passed it to Faubert casually. Uncle Chu's in some trouble." Peng Zhan didn't know why his old man wanted him to go look for Lin Yi, but he couldn't understand why Lin Yi would care about company matters other than protecting Meng Yao. Lin Yi didn't have any experience in this, did he? "It's about the company, isn't it?" Lin Yi didn't wait for Peng Zhan to finish, guessing that the only thing Peng Zhan was worried about right now was the company's business. "Yes, it's about the company." Peng Zhan nodded, not hiding anything. He wasn't going to hide anything since he was looking for help. The second and third largest shareholders of the company have teamed up, and all the board members who are on good terms with them are on their side. They're planning to hold a board meeting to elect a new chairman. Peng Zhan nodded, not hiding anything. Lin Yi waved his hand. Uncle Chu, you don't have to go into the details. I don't know much about company operations, but there's one thing I want to know right now. Will these two be a threat to your position in the company? Yes, they've been in the company for years and they have a certain amount of connections. Some of the board members are on good terms with them, and I'd lose for sure if they teamed up. Peng Zhan said. Lin Yi nodded, furrowing his eyebrows as he fell into deep thought. Peng Zhan didn't disturb Lin Yi, since he'd never come into contact with company matters before. He'd need some time to digest what he'd just heard. Unexpectedly, Lin Yi asked a strange question all of a sudden. The second and third largest shareholders you mentioned, what's their relationship like before? Before? Peng Zhan paused, a little angry. From what I've seen before, their relationship wasn't that good. You know that the three major shareholders of the company, myself included, have a certain amount of power in the board of directors. There's no such thing as someone fawning over someone else, so from what I've seen, their relationship has always been tense. But I don't know why, but at the board meeting on Sunday the two of them actually teamed up. This is what caught me off guard. It turns out that the two of them have been colluding with each other. Ha! Lin Yi laughed. Uncle Chu, you're too involved. The person involved can't see clearly? Peng Zhan paused. Maybe they didn't collude with each other long ago, but only temporarily? Lin Yi shrugged and continued, of course this is just my guess. There's definitely something fishy going on. I think there's definitely a secret that no one knows about. Peng Zhan nodded. You're right, but it doesn't matter when they started working together. What's more important is how do I deal with them working together? Ha! Why deal with them? Lin Yi smiled. Uncle Chu, haven't you thought about splitting them up, making them fight amongst themselves, or even inciting them to betray you? Lin Yi hadn't run a company before, but the most common way to deal with his enemies was to divide and destroy them, or to incite internal strife and let them kill each other first. Of course, instigating defection was also a good way. Peng Zhan paused. He'd been thinking about how to deal with Jianghu and Xie Guangguo's team. He'd never thought about splitting them up, inciting them to betray him, or inciting them to fight amongst themselves. Tell me about these two shareholders, who's the leader? Lin Yi asked. Jianghu and Xie Guangguo are the two major shareholders. Jianghu's the one I've been trying to deal with. He's the reason why Yao Yao was attacked a couple of times. I was actually planning on using the theme park incident to cause trouble for Jianghu during the board meeting on Sunday, but Xie Guangguo jumped out of nowhere. With that, Peng Zhan explained the situation to Lin Yi. Old Xie doesn't speak much, nor does he fight for power. Who knew that he'd be working with Jianghu this time? Peng Zhan's introduction, Lin Yi had a better understanding of the two shareholders of the company. This Jianghu was the leader this time, and getting him to defect was basically impossible. This Xie Guangguo that Peng Zhan was talking about was the key to solving this problem. Just as Peng Zhan had said, Xie Guangguo's behavior was completely different from his usual self on Sunday. There had to be something fishy going on, so Lin Yi decided to start with this person. Alright, if that's the case, leave this to me, Uncle Chu. I'll take care of it. Lin Yi nodded. Where does Xie Guangguo live? Xie Guangguo. You're not planning on killing people and robbing them, are you? Peng Zhan paused as he looked at Lin Yi worriedly. Don't worry, I won't kill Xie Guangguo. Lin Yi gave Peng Zhan a reassuring smile. Killing him is the only way to solve the problem once and for all, but according to what you said earlier, I'd rather kill Jianghu than Xie Guangguo. Since I've set my sights on Xie Guangguo, I can't do something like that. Naturally, it wasn't that Lin Yi hadn't thought of killing Jianghu, but he didn't want to bring unnecessary trouble to Peng Zhan. Jianghu, no matter what, he was still the second largest shareholder of Peng Zhan Industries. The death of a small fry wouldn't be a big deal, but the death of a shareholder would definitely attract attention. Lin Yi still wanted to live a peaceful life in Songshan, so he didn't want to cause any trouble for now. That's good. Peng Zhan nodded. Xie Guangguo's house is in the Qinhua waterfront district, in the private villa area F. The 6th villa is his house. I understand, leave it to me. Lin Yi said. I'll go talk to him now. Be careful. Peng Zhan didn't know if he was doing the right thing by asking Lin Yi for help, but since the old man had said so, Peng Zhan had to give it a try. Xie Guangguo isn't a normal person either. He has a bodyguard of his own, a master. Also? Lin Yi narrowed his eyes as he looked at Faubert involuntarily. Lin Yi had mentioned a golden class master before, and Faubert's expression had been a little different back then. Could it be that his suspicions were correct? That Faubert was a master amongst masters. Chapter 309. Chapter 309. How did you get in? Lin Yi thought that it was quite possible. If Faubert really was Peng Zhan's bodyguard, then he had to be a physical practitioner just like Wu Qintian. While he was a practitioner, he didn't have any qi in his body because he trained in physical arts. Lin Yi wouldn't be able to sense the qi in his body, nor would he be able to tell what level he was at. As a result, Faubert was a little mysterious in Lin Yi's eyes. Being able to stay by Peng Zhan's side for so many years meant that a kid like Wu Qintian couldn't be compared to Faubert. Just how strong was he? Lin Yi didn't think that Faubert wasn't only responsible for Peng Zhan's safety, but he also had to take care of Mengyao and Yushu's safety when they went to school. Lin Yi didn't know if anyone had tried to harm Mengyao or not, but judging from the fact that Mengyao and Yushu were still alive, Faubert had to be pretty strong. Li Fu seemed to have sensed Lin Yi's gaze on his back. After a moment of silence, he spoke up. "You're right, I'm Mr. Chu's guard. There's a master beside Mr. Xie who's no weaker than me, but I'm a physical practitioner now, and he's a spiritual practitioner." Now, Lin Yi's interest was piqued by Faubert's words. What did this now mean? He used to practice the inner qi method? But why didn't he feel anything at all? I'll be careful. Lin Yi didn't really mind. A master, huh? He was a master himself. With that, Lin Yi got out of the car and prepared to drive his van to Guanghua. There was no reason for Lin Yi to wait now that he knew what the problem was. "Wait, your van isn't going to be discovered, is it?" Peng Zhan asked as he looked at Lin Yi's van. Uncle Chu, what do you think I'm going to do?" Lin Yi used the key to open the car door and prepared to get in. "I'm going to talk to Xie Guanghua face to face. I'm not afraid of him recognizing me." "I see." Peng Zhan nodded. "Why don't you drive Yao Yao's car? The people living in that district are all rich. Your car might be stopped at the entrance of the district." "Okay, then I will drive Little Shu's beetle. Since I have the key, I don't need to bother Yao Yao anymore." Lin Yi nodded, locked his broken van and went to the garage to get the car. Qianhua Waterfront District was one of the most luxurious districts in Songshan. This place was known as the symbol of Songshan's nobility. Every household here had a duplex layout and there were even independent villas. Basically, every household had a starting price of 10 million, and a villa could be sold for more than 30 million. The people who could live here were either wealthy or respectable. And this Lead River shore was known as Songshan's wealthy district. Although not all rich people lived here, those who lived here were definitely rich people. Peng Zhan didn't buy a house here because his current place was even more luxurious than this. As the third largest shareholder of Peng Zhan Industries, one of the top 500 companies in the country, it wasn't surprising that Guanghua had a villa here. Besides, this Lead River Shore project was developed by Peng Zhan Industries. The management of Lead River Shore was very strict. Cars from outside were stopped at the entrance of the district. Only cars with a high enough grade would be let through, or cars with the district pass would be let through after it was confirmed that they were residents of the district. Lin Yi's beetle wasn't too expensive, but people who could afford it usually didn't have the first car in their family. Lin Yi's beetle was easily let through by the security guards. He didn't ask around for directions either, and drove around the area until he found Area F. It was actually quite easy to find the area with all the bungalows and villas in the area. Lin Yi parked the car in front of the 6th villa and got out of the car. However, Lin Yi didn't press the doorbell. Instead, he stepped on the transformer box beside the villa and jumped up to the balcony on the 2nd floor. Although Guanghua lived in a luxurious villa, he wasn't a person who liked luxury. He lived here because of his identity as a shareholder. Sometimes he couldn't afford to lose face. If he lived in a shabby place, his business partners would be worried about his capabilities. Guanghua didn't remarry after losing his wife in his middle age. He didn't have much desire for material things and he wasn't interested in women either. So after his wife passed away, he didn't bring any random women back to live with him. Guanghua's biggest wish was that his son could take over his career and make a name for himself. However, he didn't expect that his son would get addicted to gambling and drugs. He sent his son overseas to study with good intentions so that he could come back and help him. Gambling wasn't a big deal. A little gambling was fun and Guanghua would occasionally play a few rounds with his old friends. But drugs, that was a bottomless pit. No matter how much money one had, it would be sucked into it. This time, his son actually owed a foreign mafia 100 million. Although Guanghua was furious, he only had one son and he couldn't just ignore it. Guanghua had just ended the call with his son. Seeing his son beaten up badly, Guanghua's heart ached. He wanted to rush to his son's side and save him. "Guanghua." A voice sounded in front of Xie Guanghua. Xie Guanghua was startled. He subconsciously raised his head and saw a shocking scene. "Oh, who are you?" Guangbo looked like he saw a ghost as he looked at Lin Yi in disbelief. He had ended the call with his son and was in a daze for a while. Then, there was another person in the room. The reason why Guangbo was surprised wasn't that Lin Yi had snuck into his room without a sound, but that Lin Yi had gotten in. When he was on the phone with his son, Guangbo purposely locked the door from the inside to prevent the housekeeper and bodyguards from hearing what he said. The room key was in his hands, so how did this person get in? More importantly, how did he get in? There were nannies and bodyguards downstairs, and it was impossible for him to enter without alerting them. If it was a normal visit, the nannies would have notified him, and if it was an abnormal intrusion, the bodyguards would have stopped him. But this person came in and stood in front of him, and he didn't even notice. Chapter 310. The bodyguard appears. Lin Yi pointed at the open window, not answering Guangbo's question. Can I ask you something? Why did you support Jianghu in the board meeting? Guangbo paused, understanding where Lin Yi was coming from. Pengzhan sent you? If you can leave now. Go back and tell him that there's no room for discussion. You've been eating too many stupid pills, haven't you? Why would he send me here? I'm helping out of my own volition. Lin Yi curled his lips. Did this guy think he was some small fry? Asking him to pass on the message? Was he stupid? Pengzhan treated him pretty well, but Lin Yi had come to Songshan only because of his old man. Other than old Lin and his assassin master, there was no one else who could send Lin Yi to do anything. Then what do you do? Guangbo was a little surprised at Lin Yi's words. This guy didn't seem to be Pengzhan's follower at all. What did he do then? Lin Yi frowned impatiently. I'm Mingyao's bodyguard. Ah. Guangbo was taken aback. Mingyao's bodyguard was here for him? Wasn't he being a busybody? You're Mingyao's bodyguard. What are you doing here instead of protecting her? You don't believe me when I say you're retarded. Lin Yi glared at him like he was an idiot. Pengzhan's Mingyao's dad. Who's going to pay for my expenses if he loses his job? Lin Yi was just saying that to draw a line between him and Pengzhan. Pengzhan could push all the blame away if things got exposed. If word got out that Pengzhan threatened the shareholders, it wouldn't be good for his reputation. Guangbo was speechless. Were you the retarded one or was I? Why was a bodyguard like you meddling in company business? Guangbo realized something all of a sudden. You're here for money, aren't you? Tell me how much. It was no wonder that Guangbo thought of Lin Yi as a money grubber. Lin Yi's identity had nothing to do with the company's business. I say, why are you talking so much nonsense? Do you want to die? Lin Yi kicked the safe beside him, sending it flying. It landed in front of Guangbo with a bang, just 1 centimeter away from his toes. Guangbo was completely caught off guard. Cold sweat dripped down from his forehead. Was he still human? Was he really a bodyguard? How could he be so awesome? He could send a safe that weighed a few hundred pounds flying with just 1 kick? When he looked at the safe, Guangbo felt a chill down his spine. On the side of the safe there was a big hole. He was kicked out by Lin Yi. This kind of vault safe was surrounded by thick iron plates. How could he kick a hole through it? It was already difficult for the thief to cut it open with a chainsaw, so how could he kick it? Of course, this was not the main problem. The main problem was that if the safe had flown any higher or further, he would have lost his life. I want you to stay away from Jianghu. Do you understand? Lin Yi didn't bother asking why the guy was helping Jianghu. As long as he was afraid of death, he'd better get as far away from Gubang as possible. Guangbo's face paled, but he didn't say anything. He couldn't answer Lin Yi. What would happen to his son if he stayed away from Jianghu? Guangbo was scared, but he couldn't lower his head. Tell me, how much money do I have to pay for you to let me go? Money? You think you're rich? Lin Yi said disdainfully as he walked over. Guangbo shrunk back subconsciously. Lin Yi, however, didn't do anything to Guangbo. He walked over to the safe that was dented by the kick and pulled hard. The door was pulled down by Lin Yi. Is there any money in this safe? Lin Yi flipped through the contents of the safe and found a bank book. He opened it, but Lin Yi was disappointed. There was a lot of money in the bank book, 40 million, but it had all been withdrawn a few days ago. There's only a few kwai left in your bank book. How are you going to give me money? Guangbo remembered that he'd transferred all his savings to his son a couple of days ago. Where would he have the money to give to Lin Yi? TSK, looks like you're in need of money? Is that why you agreed to Jianghu request? Lin Yi tossed the bank book aside and continued flipping through the contents of the safe. He smiled when he took out a stack of documents. Pengzhan Industries shares? All right, you can transfer them to me now. No. Guangbo abruptly sat up straight, a determined look on his face. That's impossible. Is that so? Lin Yi tossed the shares to the side. Do you want your life or the shares? However, at that moment the door was kicked open and a man rushed in. As soon as the man rushed in, he shouted, Mr. Xia, are you all right? As soon as he asked the question, he saw Lin Yi and tensed up. He'd heard the loud noise coming from Guangguo's room, and felt that something was wrong. He'd rushed up to see Lin Yi as if he was facing a powerful enemy. The man was around 30 years old, with an unprepossessing appearance. He was the type of person who'd be easily overlooked in a crowd. This type of person was perfect for a bodyguard. Guangguo let out a breath of relief when he saw the man walk in, a relaxed expression on his face. He knew how strong a bodyguard was, and although Lin Yi was strong, he wasn't a match for this man. Huang, kill him. Xie Guangguo ordered the man who just came in. This person who could threaten his life, Xie Guangguo would not let him live in this world. Otherwise, the bodyguard could protect him, but it was impossible for the bodyguard to be by his side 24/7, especially when Lin Yi could sneak into his room without a sound. If there was a first time, there would be a second time. Guangguo was afraid of this kind of ability. If Lin Yi attacked him without alerting him next time, it would be difficult for him to escape. However, as he shouted, he'd already flown up and threw a punch at Lin Yi. Who are you? Ah. Lin Yi smiled faintly as he raised his fist. He didn't move from his spot as if he was welcoming someone. The man was stunned. He didn't expect Lin Yi to take his punch head-on. This made him feel incredulous and he increased the strength of his fist. He was ready to kill Lin Yi with one punch. Chapter 311. More than life bang. A loud sound rang out and Lin Yi didn't move an inch from where he stood. Huang, on the other hand, flew out in a straight line, landing on the wall in front of the room with another bang. The wall caved in and the decorative picture frame fell to the ground, hitting Huang's head. Huang, however, was already unconscious, lying there motionless with a trail of black blood at the corner of his mouth. Lin Yi hadn't used his full strength after all. An early-phase golden class master wasn't worth it at all. Lin Yi had only reflected Huang's attack back at him. It was the same as punching himself. It wasn't enough to take Huang's life, but he'd have to stay in bed for a while. Lin Yi was here to negotiate with Guangguo, not to kill him. As for his bodyguard, Lin Yi wouldn't kill him. Just who are you? Guangguo didn't expect his bodyguard to die before Lin Yi could even finish one move. Of course, he didn't know that Huang was still alive. As far as he was concerned, Huang hadn't moved at all after flying out. What else could it be other than dead? I told you I'm Mingyao's bodyguard, or maybe I'm not her bodyguard. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Lin Yi shrugged. But now, can you sign the shares transfer agreement with me? I don't want to kill anyone, so don't force me. Guangguo was a little dispirited. Huang was his only hope, and he knew how strong he was. He was a legendary golden class master. If Huang hadn't owed him a favor back then, a master of that level wouldn't have come to protect him. But a master of that level had been killed by Lin Yi. This shocked and terrified Guangguo. I can't transfer the shares to you. Guangguo shook his head. Absolutely not. So you want to die? Lin Yi was a little annoyed. There were people who cared about money more than their lives? This was the first time. This guy was obviously scared out of his wits, but when it came to shares, he refused to budge. I don't want to. Guangguo shook his head, his eyes flashing with determination. I can't give you the shares even if I die. Lin Yi really didn't know what to say. He really wanted to slap this guy in front of him to death. Lin Yi picked up the door plank of the safe. He wanted to give Guangguo another shock. He wanted to bend the plank to scare him, but Guangguo misunderstood. He thought that Lin Yi had lost his patience and was about to kill him. Guangguo suddenly said, Wait. Don't kill me. I can give you the shares, but you have to wait for a few days. How many days? Lin Yi was taken aback. At least after Jianghu becomes the chairman of the company, I'll give all my shares to you. Xie Guangguo said, Even if I go to jail, it doesn't matter. You can kill me and I'll give you the shares, but I can't do it now. Guangguo's words confused Lin Yi. He had to wait for Jianghu to become the chairman before giving him the shares? He could even kill him afterwards. Was there such a ridiculous thing in the world? Was this Jianghu his father or grandfather? Was he really worth doing this for? What did Jianghu give you? Lin Yi frowned. My son, he's studying abroad, but he got addicted to gambling and drugs. He owes the local mafia 100 million, and they've got him under their control. They'll kill him if I don't give them the money. Guangguo knew that if he didn't explain things to Lin Yi wouldn't let him go. He might even kill him in a fit of rage. Oh, you're saying that Jianghu paid for your son's debt? Lin Yi frowned. So that was the reason? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. What a pitiful parent. In order to save his son, Xie Guangbo would rather die than to transfer his shares to him. But in order to save his son, he could give up his shares and life. No, he doesn't have that much liquid cash, and neither do I. Guangbo smiled bitterly. My son owes them US dollars. The 40 million I have in my bank account is just a drop in the bucket. But Jean Gubang has promised me that he'll let me use the company's funds after he becomes the chairman. Fuck. Lin Yi really wanted to curse. This Jean Gubang was quite mean, agreeing to something like that. It seemed like he was willing to do anything to become the chairman, sacrificing the company's profits for this position. Where's your son? I'll bring him back and you'll give me the shares. Lin Yi didn't use a questioning tone at the end, but a commanding tone instead. It was an unquestionable order. Guangbo blinked. What, you don't believe in my strength? Lin Yi narrowed his eyes at Guangbo. No, of course not. Guangbo quickly shook his head. What a joke. How could he dare doubt Lin Yi's strength now? Even Ah Huang was beaten to a point where he didn't even know if he was dead or alive. Strength like that was rare in this world. But, as strong as he was up against a foreign mafia. Could he really bring his son back? Do you really think your son will come back safe and sound after giving them money? Lin Yi looked at Guangbo mockingly. Why don't you use your brain and think about it? Do you think they'll let a money tree like this go? Drug and gambling addictions are the hardest to kick. As long as he's still alive, you'll just have to prepare more money next time. Guangbo didn't deny it. He agreed with Lin Yi's words in his heart. This wasn't the first time his son had asked for money, but there were all sorts of reasons he'd come up with before, but none of them had asked for as much as this time. He'd offended some powerful people, he wanted to buy a car, his girlfriend ran away with someone. Guangbo told his son to come back as soon as possible after giving him the money, but his son didn't seem to listen at all. Now that he thought about it, Lin Yi was probably telling the truth. His son was using the money to pay off his debt and loan sharks. I'll give you 1 second to think. Do you want to die now, or do you want to bring your son back and give me the shares? Lin Yi looked at Guangbo as he slowly raised the safe. Alright, 1 second's up. Wait? Guangbo quickly waved his hand. I agree. Chapter 312. Yao Yao's complaint. Lin Yi looked at Guangbo and nodded, satisfied. He threw the safe down. Let's put off Jean Gubang, I'll get your son back in a week. Don't try anything funny or you and your son. Lin Yi didn't finish his sentence, but Guangbo understood what he meant. Don't worry, as long as my son's fine, I'll cooperate with you no matter what. Guangbo had thought it through as well. Lin Yi really bringing his son back would be for the best. He'd have no shares and no money, but he'd be able to let his son live a hard life like a normal person. Without the money for drugs and gambling, his son might be able to walk the right path. I hope you'll do as you say. Lin Yi looked at Guangbo deeply, noticing that his eyes were clear. I'll fulfill your wish as well. Give me your son's information and send it to my voicemail. My phone number is 152x × 1234. I'll send it to you in a bit. May I ask? Guangbo asked carefully. He won't die. A golden class master like him only needs half a month to recover. Lin Yi said with a wave of his hand. Guangbo's heart skipped a beat. Lin Yi could see through Huang's strength so easily? What kind of strength did he have then? But the stronger Lin Yi was, the happier Guangbo was. It was the only way Lin Yi could bring his son back from the mafia. Lin Yi didn't jump out the window this time. He walked out the front door with a swagger, disappearing from Guangbo's sight in the Beetle. Beetle? Guangbo blinked. He glanced at the license plate and remembered that it was Yushu's, Minyao's best friend's car. Was he really one of Minyao's people? But Guangbo couldn't believe that a master like that would be Minyao's bodyguard. How was that possible? Even Pingzhan's Falbert wasn't as strong as him, was he? Guangbo shook his head and stopped guessing Lin Yi's identity. There was no point in guessing. He just needed to follow Lin Yi's instructions. She called Nurse Wang in the servant's room and asked her to send Ah Huang back to his room. Since Lin Yi said that Ah Huang was fine, it should be fine. When he entered the room, Ah Huang was already awake. He opened his eyes with difficulty and looked at Guangbo. Mr. Xia, I'm sorry. I couldn't protect you. Don't say any more. The other party was very powerful. Are you alright? Do you need to go to the hospital? Guangbo waved his hand. He couldn't blame Ah Huang for being weaker than him. Ah Huang had tried his best. No, I'll be fine after some rest. Huang shook his head. He's at least a late phase golden class. Mr. Xia, you're not hurt? No. Guangbo smiled bitterly. A late phase golden class was 2 levels higher than Ah Huang. Naturally, Huang wouldn't be a match for a master like that. Lin Yi drove back to the villa area only to find that Pengzhan's car was still there. Pengzhan wasn't in the car anymore, but Faubert was sitting quietly in the driver's seat. "Where's Uncle Chu?" Lin Yi asked after parking the car. "In the villa. Mr. Chu told you to go find him when you got back." Faubert nodded to Lin Yi. Lin Yi entered the villa to see Pengzhan talking to Meng Yao on the sofa. Yushu was watching TV on the side as well. Meng Yao wasn't happy to see Lin Yi so late. "Daddy, look at Lin Yi. He's always so late. You're the one who hired him 24 hours a day. How can he be so undisciplined?" Meng Yao said as she looked at Lin Yi proudly. "Let's see if you still dare to go out and flirt with other girls. My daddy's here now, you've caught him red-handed, haven't you? Let's see how you explain this." But to Meng Yao's surprise, Pengzhan interrupted before Lin Yi could explain. Yao, Lin Yi went to do something for me, don't talk nonsense. Plus, Lin Yi takes care of your studies during the day and stays by your side at night. What kind of work discipline is that? Can't he have his own things to do?" "Daddy?" Meng Yao wasn't expecting to be scolded instead of Lin Yi. She glared at Lin Yi with an unhappy face. This guy. How could he be protected by her daddy like this? If it weren't for the fact that she was her mother's only child, and that her father wasn't a playboy, she would have thought that Lin Yi was her father's bastard. "Alright, come with me for a bit? Yeah, let's go to your room." Pengzhan didn't bother with his daughter. He'd been busy with company matters, and in order not to worry his daughter, he'd forced a smile on his face as he talked to her about her studies. Now that Lin Yi was back, Pengzhan couldn't wait to know the results. "Okay, Uncle Chu." Lin Yi nodded before entering his room with Pengzhan. Pengzhan was getting impatient the moment he closed the door. "How did it go? What did Guangbua say?" "He won't be hanging out with Jean Gubang for the next couple of days, but I'll have to go overseas for a while," Lin Yi said. "Abroad? What's going on?" Pengzhan was delighted to hear that Guangbua wouldn't be supporting Jean Gubang. As long as Guangbua didn't interfere, Jean Gubang wouldn't be able to do anything on his own. Xie Guangbua's son owes the mafia a loan of $100 million. Lin Yi explained simply. Guangbua supported Jean Gubang as the new chairman because Jean Gubang agreed to let him use the company's funds to pay off his son's debt. "So that's the reason," Pengzhan said. "Then you're going overseas, bringing his son back in exchange?" Lin Yi said casually. "But don't worry, Uncle Chu. It's only a 10-hour trip, and 2 days is more than enough. 2 days and you'll be able to bring him back." Pengzhan blinked, but nodded at the thought of Lin Yi's efficiency and skills. "Then I'll have to trouble you. Be careful, but I'll have to trouble Faubert for a few days. I'm afraid that Guangbua's sudden betrayal will drive Jean Gubang to the wall, and he might do something extreme," Lin Yi said. "I'd have him disappear if I wasn't afraid of causing trouble for you." Chapter 313. Chapter 313. Small matter. Pengzhan's words warmed Lin Yi's hearts. It seemed that Pengzhan wasn't treating him as a hired person. He was caring for someone younger than him. "Uncle Chu, actually, this is really a small matter." Lin Yi felt very blessed right now. Someone cared for him every day. Was this the life of a normal person? Small matter? This is a small matter? You're about to face a foreign mafia, Pengzhan said seriously. They're different from the gangsters back in China. They're a bunch of desperados with guns and ammunitions. How am I supposed to answer to Elder Lin if something were to happen to you? Even my father wouldn't let me off the hook. Lin Yi didn't know how old Lin communicated with Pengzhan, but it seemed like the old man didn't know what he'd done in the past. Not to mention a mafia leader, he'd even send private armies and mercenary leaders of smaller countries to their deaths. "Uncle Chu, you'd know if you knew my old man. Actually, what I'm about to do is really a small matter," Lin Yi explained with a bitter smile. "Alright, I believe you." Pengzhan nodded after hearing Lin Yi's words. "You can just call Faubert and get him to take care of the plane ticket. I'll be going back first. Since Guangbua won't be on Jean Gubang's side anymore, I'll have to reconsider how to deal with Gubang." "Alright, take care, Uncle Chu." Lin Yi got up and walked Pengzhan to the door. Pengzhan waved his hand and left the villa after a few words with Meng Yao. It was getting late, and Meng Yao and Yushu locked the door and turned off the TV, yawning as they went upstairs to sleep. Lin Yi, on the other hand, sat in front of his computer and logged into his mailbox. As expected, Guangbua had already sent all the information on his son to Lin Yi. Xie Guangbua's son was Xie Jinbiao. He was 19 years old and was an international student. However, he was now brought to a remote town called Blue Town. It was a border town of a small country. Due to its geographical location, public security was very chaotic. The entire town was under the control of the local gangs. Xie Jingbia was captured there. The Blue Water Gang didn't seem to be afraid of revealing their location to Guangbo because the city was completely under the mafia's control. They didn't think that Guangbo's influence would reach here at all. Even the other gangs nearby would give the Blue Water some face, and wouldn't trespass on their territory for no good reason. Of course, the Blue Water leader didn't think Guangbo had the ability to do so even if he did. Life or death was up to the Blue Water Gang's whims once they entered the city. The headquarters of the Blue Water Gang was located in the ancient Blue Castle of Blue City. The castle had a bit of history, and belonged to the owner of the city, a great family that had a glorious era. But that was a thing of the past since the entire family had been wiped out after offending a powerful being a few decades ago. That was a very powerful family. In the past, the business and political power of the little blue city was completely controlled by this family. So when this family was destroyed, this place was in a state of chaos for a period of time. A few years later, Blue Town was taken over by the Blue Water, and order was restored. It was just a small gang after all and couldn't compare to a big family. The city's economy plummeted, and the Blue Water Gang had no choice but to use drugs and gambling to attract tourists. A strange smile appeared on Lin Yi's face as he looked at the information Guangbo had given him. Blue Town? Blue Castle? That name sounded familiar. His assassin master had said that he'd wiped out a trash family before, but Lin Yi couldn't remember if they lived in Blue Castle. Lin Yi called Faubert and asked him to book a plane ticket for tomorrow night. It wouldn't take more than 2 days and it shouldn't affect his attendance at Kang Xiaobo's birthday party. Lin Yi got a call from Xu Amin the next morning. The Lius had already gathered the money for the doctor's treatment, 100 million. They could transfer it over at any time. Lin Yi was amazed by this. Weren't the Lius a little too efficient? They had money so early in the morning? What they didn't know was that Elder Jianghu was the pillar of the Lius. No matter how much money they had to protect him first. I understand, Grandpa Guan. I'll be there in a bit. Lin Yi said. Let them wait. Xu Amin smiled and hung up the phone. He told Lu Qianni about Lin Yi's intentions. However, Lu Qianni wasn't angry at all. Everyone was like this, so what if he had to wait for a while? If Lin Yi heard that the money was ready and rushed over, Lu Qianni would even suspect that Lin Yi was a scammer. Now that Lin Yi didn't seem to care, Lu Qianni felt that it was normal. 100 million, if it was any other ordinary teenager they might not know what to do. How big of a number was that? But Lin Yi had asked for 100 million straight away, as if he didn't care about it at all. Lu Qianni felt that Lin Yi was very confident that he could cure his old man's illness. That was why he dared to ask for such a price. Lu Qianni had Wu Huiru get ready to wake up the old man while he contacted his subordinates to prepare the money as soon as possible. It wouldn't be fun if Lin Yi turned around and left in a rage before the money was ready. Lin Yi put his phone down and went to the kitchen. He needed breakfast every day anyway, so he'd bring some for Meng Yao and Yushu along the way. Come to think of it, the girls were quite pitiful. Their parents were busy with work, and they didn't have anyone to take care of them. They were in their 12th year of high school, studying late into the night with severe lack of sleep. How was this the life of a miss? The two were smart, but there were too many smart people in the college entrance exam. In the end, it still depended on who had the most preparation. Being smart wasn't enough to get good grades. This was something Lin Yi admired. Even if they didn't take the college entrance exams, Peng Zhan could have easily found a good university for them with his strength alone. Yet they relied on their own hard work to get good grades. This was a fundamental difference from Zhong Pingliang, who only knew how to eat and wait for death. Chapter 314. Pingliang, depressed Lin Yi drove his old van to school, following Faubert's Bentley from afar. Actually, Faubert's skills were more than enough for him to handle emergencies. There weren't many people who would attack this bulletproof Bentley on the way to school. Lin Yi saw Tang Yun, Kang Xiaobo, and Lu Xinwen getting off the bus when they were almost at school. He didn't think that they would bump into each other in the morning. Lin Yi had heard that Kang Xiaobo and Tang Yun were going the same way, but Kang Xiaobo didn't know Kang Xiaobo before. Now, Kang Xiaobo could officially stand together with Tang Yun, his sister-in-law. DD. Lin Yi pressed the horn twice. Xiaobo frowned as he turned around to see an old van. What the hell was an old van honking for? Plus, the road was wide and there was nothing in the way. But Tang Yun looked at the bun and found it familiar. She looked at the person in the driver's seat, and a smile appeared on her face. That smile made Lin Yi a little dazed and he almost drove the car over. Fortunately, his reflexes were quick, or it would have been a tragedy. Is that boss? Kang Xiaobo saw that it was Lin Yi who was driving. He ran over with his backpack and jumped in. He called out to Tang Yun and Lu Xinwen, You guys get in too? Tang Yun was a bit bashful. They were almost at school, why would they need to take a car? Wouldn't it be fine to just walk? Okay. Lu Xinwen replied and pulled Tang Yun into the van. Boss, is this your car? Kang Xiaobo looked at the broken van speechless. This was completely different from the boss Lin he knew. Hey, you guessed it right. This is my car. Lin Yi handed the license to Kang Xiaobo. I just got it yesterday. Kang Xiaobo looked at the license and saw that it was indeed Lin Yi's name. He was speechless. This car really belonged to Lin Yi. Was the Beetle really borrowed? Boss, is this the car you mentioned yesterday? Kang Xiaobo handed the license back to Lin Yi. Yeah, I'm actually really poor, but I have a rich relative. It's already good enough that I can drive this car. Lin Yi smiled. Lin Yi's words touched Kang Xiaobo and Lu Xinwen. Lin Yi didn't seem to be the young master they were talking about. However, it was commendable for him to use all his money to pay for Xiaofen's medical fees. Tang Yun had long noticed that Lin Yi was different from others. She was curious about Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't look like a young master, but sometimes, Lin Yi was even more arrogant than those young masters. As for this car, Tang Yun was familiar with it. It seemed to be the car that was snatched from Heibao that night and Lin Yi took it for himself. Although Tang Yun didn't approve of this robbery, Heibao was too much. Being punished by Lin Yi with a car was already very light. Of course, Tang Yun didn't know that Heibao was still lying in the hospital's intensive care unit. The bones in his body were all broken. It would take at least half a year for him to recover. Lin Yi parked the car in the food street behind the school and the four entered the school together. The students of the school were already used to these four people who were often together. Even Wang Jifeng, the Dean of Academic Affairs, was not used to them and nodded at them. Dean Wang. Lin Yi suddenly remembered that he was going abroad and wanted to ask for a leave. Oh? Lin Yi, what's the matter? Wang Jifeng squeezed a smile on his face. He already had a shadow in his heart. Every time he had an affair with the female teacher, he couldn't help but think about it. Lin Yi knew about it, so when Lin Yi called him, he couldn't help but think about the affair with the female teacher. This was a strange circle, the cycle of cause and effect, repeated over and over again. However, Wang Jifeng was a bit afraid. This kid always did things that made him feel embarrassed. Would he find him for something? Well, I might have something to do these 2 days. I need to ask for a few days of leave. Is that okay? Lin Yi asked. If that's the case, of course it's okay. Go do what you need to do, I'll tell your homeroom teacher. Wang Jifeng heard this and immediately calmed down. Jifeng calmed down after hearing that. It wasn't a big deal at all, and it wasn't the first time Lin Yi skipped class either. After Wang Jifeng left, Kang Xiaobo was a bit curious. Boss, you need to ask for a leave? What do you need to do? You won't miss my second grandpa's birthday this weekend, right? Tang Yun also widened her eyes and stared at Lin Yi. She also wanted to ask, but Kang Xiaobo asked first. Only Lu Xinwen wasn't interested. Whether Lin Yi went to school or not didn't have much to do with her. I was invited to treat a patient. Lin Yi naturally couldn't say that he was going abroad, so he said it with a lie. Treat? You know how to treat patients? Right. You know acupuncture. Lu Xinwen was a bit surprised, but she suddenly remembered what happened with Xiaofen and nodded. I'm just going to help. Lin Yi smiled. That's not bad. Kang Xiaobo gave a thumbs up in admiration. Boss, hurry up and improve your medical skills. It would be great if you can treat Xiaofen. I will work hard. Lin Yi nodded. Kang Xiaobo and Tang Yun knew that Lin Yi had some medical skills, so they didn't find it strange that Lin Yi went to see a patient. Last time, Lin Yi told Tang Yun that he had a way to treat Xiaofen's illness, but he couldn't do it now. So Tang Yun and Kang Xiaobo naturally thought that Lin Yi was talking about his medical skills not being enough. Tang Yun wanted to ask Lin Yi if he could take a look at her father's illness, but she remembered that Lin Yi couldn't do anything for Xiaofen, so she didn't ask. When they entered the class, Mengyao and Yushu were already sitting on their seats. Lin Yi and Kang Xiaobo walked in, and the two raised their heads to look at Lin Yi before going back to their work. Pinliang was depressed. He had said that he was going to write a letter of love to Mengyao yesterday, but it ended because of the bloody mess. No one brought it up today, but Pinliang felt like everyone was looking at him strangely. It was almost as if they were mocking him. Pinliang didn't know if it was his imagination playing tricks on him, but he felt a little uneasy. Chapter 315. You're being insincere, HM? Xiaofu paused. You're still writing it? Yeah, I sent out the news yesterday saying that I'm writing a letter of blood to Mengyao. There was an accident, but what do you think people will think of me if I don't write it? Won't they think I'm a coward? Pinliang asked. This. Gao Xiaofu put down his bag and said hesitantly, Liangyi, to be honest, a man should always keep his word. I feel that whether or not people laugh at this matter and how they view it, it has nothing to do with you. What matters is what Meng Yao thinks. Meng Yao's attitude is the key. That's right. Pin Liang slapped his thigh, suddenly enlightened. Fu, you're the one who woke me up from my daydream. It's true, what other people think has nothing to do with me, it's Meng Yao's attitude that matters. But how do I know what Meng Yao thinks? Does she want me to write her a letter of blood or not? That? Xiaofu wasn't sure. Maybe you can ask her? How am I supposed to ask her? Fu, maybe you can ask Yushu? She's good friends with Meng Yao, you can ask her. Pin Liang suggested. That works too. I'll ask her. Xiaofu nodded and took out his phone, sending Yushu a text. With modern communication tools like phones, there was no need for him to ask her personally anymore. Miss Yushu, may I ask what Miss Meng Yao thinks about Liang Bro's letter of blood yesterday? Xiaofu's text was very politely, he was afraid that Meng Yao would ignore him. It wasn't long before Xiaofu received Yushu's reply. Yao Yao said that Liangzi's hands are only good as a water gun. Forget about the letter of blood. Xiaofu wanted to laugh but didn't dare. He handed the phone to Pin Liang. Pin Liang didn't quite understand after reading the text. Fu, what do you think she means? Liang bro, forgive me for being blunt, but I think Meng Yao looks down on you. Xiaofu said carefully. Despise? Pin Liang paused and looked at the message. There was indeed a hint of disdain in it. He panicked. Fu, what should we do? Indeed, it's as if Yushu is laughing at me for not being able to write a blood letter. Brother Liang, why don't you write another blood letter? Prove to them that it's not that you can't do it, that what happened yesterday was just an accident. Gao Xiaofu suggested. That's fine. Pin Liang nodded, this was the only way. Xiaofu quickly prepared a new piece of paper for Pin Liang. Pin Liang held the carving knife in his hand, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. It wasn't that he was afraid of pain, it was just that yesterday's incident had left a lingering fear in his heart. What if he cut his finger and caused it to bleed profusely? Pin Liang hesitated. Liang bro, what's wrong? Xiaofu asked, noticing Pin Liang's hesitation. Xiaofu, I don't dare to do it anymore. What happened yesterday was too fucking scary. Pin Liang's hand was shaking as he held the carving knife. Plus, if he were to cut it today, he'd have to get a new finger. He couldn't keep cutting on the same wound yesterday, wouldn't that hurt? As a result, Pin Liang couldn't bring himself to do it. Liang bro, a man should be harder on himself. Do you want me to help you? Xiaofu asked. You'll help me? Pin Liang blinked. Sure. Fu, you're such a good friend. If that's the case, I won't hold back. I'll treat you to lunch. Xiaofu paused as well, a bitter smile on his face. He'd wanted to cut Pin Liang's finger with the carving knife, but Pin Liang had clearly misunderstood him, thinking that he wanted to cut his finger and write a blood letter for him. What's wrong? Pin Liang handed the carving knife to Xiaofu. Is there a problem? No. Nothing. Xiaofu took the knife and gritted his teeth, cutting his index finger. Blood gushed out, but Pin Liang's hemorrhage from yesterday didn't happen. Alright Fu, don't move. I'll use your finger to write a blood letter. With that, Pin Liang held Xiaofu's finger and started writing on the paper in front of him. What he didn't know was that this wasn't unseen. Yushu, who wasn't far away, had her phone raised and zoomed in on the camera, just enough to see Pin Liang and Xiaofu clearly. Yao Yao, this Pin Liang guy isn't much, isn't he? He's using Xiaofu's finger to write a blood letter for you? Isn't that a little too insincere? Yushu said with a giggle. What does that have to do with me? Meng Yao said, ignoring Yushu as she continued reading her book. Man, that's boring. Yushu put her phone away, a little disappointed. I wanted to see Pin Liang's hand turn into a water gun one more time. Meng Yao was speechless. What was there to see? Were you afraid that Pin Liang would die too slowly? The first class ended, and Pin Liang ran over to Meng Yao's desk with the letter written in Xiaofu's blood. He held the letter up with both hands. Yao Yao, please accept my confession of love from the bottom of my heart. Meng Yao frowned. She didn't even look at Pin Liang, nor did she care about him. Yushu, on the other hand, stood up with a smile and took the letter from Pin Liang's hands. Let me check it for you first. Is there anything wrong with it? Okay. Pin Liang was overjoyed that Yushu was willing to help. With Yushu, Meng Yao's best friend, giving him pointers, wouldn't it be just a matter of time before he got to Meng Yao? Look. Yushu opened the letter. She didn't want to read it, actually. She didn't have the time to read this guy's crappy letter. But Yushu had an even better idea. What do you think? Pin Liang looked at Yushu expectantly, waiting for her pointers. Hey, why didn't you sign it? Who'd know who wrote it if you did that? Yushu's eyes darted around. She'd finally found an entry point. Sign. Pinliang blinked. Isn't this a letter written by me? Do I even need to sign it? Of course you're not sincere at all. Yushu said with a straight face. You don't even have a sign on your letter, it's not official at all. No wonder you couldn't get Yao Yao after all this time. Yushu curled her lips as she spoke, a look of disdain on her face. Chapter 316. The best partner? You don't have to go back, you can do it here. Yushu said with a half-smile as she looked at the band-aid on Pinliang's hand. Other than the cut on his index finger yesterday, Pinliang had also wrapped a band-aid around his right middle finger to confuse Mengyao and Yushu. He couldn't let them know that today's blood letter was written with Gao Xiaofu's blood, after all. Here. Pinliang paused before a bitter smile appeared on his face. The wound on my hand has dried up. I'll have to go back and get a carving knife. Oh. It's fine, I have a carving knife here. I'll lend it to you. With that, Yushu pulled out a carving knife from her bag like magic and handed it to Pinliang. Pinliang sweated. Why was he so unlucky? He had thought that he had escaped death, but he did not expect that he would still have to cut his finger. Yushu was right here too, and it wouldn't be right if he didn't do it. Pinliang's face was covered in cold sweat. It's not a good idea to do it here, is it? What if the blood spurts out everywhere and scares you guys? I say, Liangyi, you don't get it, do you? Yushu said. How could I let you go back? I still want to see you bleed non-stop. She pretended to be teaching him a lesson. Cut your finger in front of the girl you love and sign your name on the blood letter in front of her. That's the only way to show how much you love her. Is that so? Pinliang was starting to get excited. Then I'll do it now? What are you waiting for? Yushu asked back. Then, all right. Pinliang's face lit up with determination. Mengyao was amused. This Shu really didn't bat an eyelid when it came to messing with people. Zhong Pinliang was in big trouble because of Shu. But she hated Pinliang, so she didn't try to stop him. However, it was also because of Mingyao's indifferent attitude that Pinliang thought that she was agreeing to it. Under normal circumstances, Mengyao would have kicked him out impatiently if she didn't like him. But this time, Mengyao didn't say anything, which meant that she agreed. This made Pinliang even more determined. He took the carving knife from Yushu, wondering which finger he should cut this time. While Pinliang was hesitating, Yushu sent a message to Lin Yi. Shield bro, Pinliang's cutting his finger again. Please come help. Pinliang gripped the carving knife, gritting his teeth as if he'd made a difficult decision. Abruptly he cut off his right thumb. He could only cut this finger. It was not convenient to write on the other fingers. Lin Yi looked at the message on his phone and stood up slowly. He walked over to Pinliang, a smile on his face when he saw him cut his finger. It seemed like the kid hadn't learned his lesson from yesterday. Don't block the way. Lin Yi said as he pulled on Pinliang's arm, causing him to stumble. Pinliang was just about to sign his name when Lin Yi's voice came from behind him, startling him. He thought that Lin Yi was going to kick him again, but after the push, Lin Yi strode over without hesitation. Phew? Pinliang breathed out in relief. It seemed like Lin Yi didn't do anything to him because he was in a hurry to go to the washroom. Wah? Yushu pointed at Pinliang's finger excitedly. Liangyi, your finger's bleeding? That's so cool. Do you have superpowers? Is this the legendary six-pulse blade? Pinliang blinked, not understanding what Yushu was talking about. He lowered his head to continue writing, only to realize that the paper was already soaked in blood. His hand, on the other hand. Blood was gushing out like a fountain, just like yesterday. Ah! Pinliang yelped as he tossed the blood letter aside and ran back to his seat. Fu, band-aids, give me a band-aid. Yushu raised two fingers in a V shape as she watched Pinliang run away. She cheered happily. Yay, success. Shield bro and I work well together. Mengyao didn't know what to say as she looked at her best friend. She was now certain that Pinliang's bleeding yesterday had to have been caused by Lin Yi. Before Lin Yi came over, Pinliang's finger was still bleeding very slowly, but after Lin Yi came over, the blood was gushing out like a fountain. It was obviously Lin Yi's doing. Lin Yi and Yushu? They really were a match made in heaven, the prankster duo? It'd be hard for Pinliang not to be crippled in the future. Mingyao's heart ached a little at the thought of Yushu and Lin Yi being a match made in heaven. She had to admit that Yushu and Yushu were very similar in some ways. Hee hee, Yao Yao, what do you think? Feels good, right? Let's see if Pinliang dares write that blood letter again. Yushu turned back to look at Pinliang, only to see him trying to wrap a band-aid around his wound. One band-aid wasn't enough to stop the blood anymore. Pinliang had no choice but to wrap it around his finger with cellophane tape. Only this sort of airtight tape could stop the wound. Pinliang found it strange. How did his finger end up like this? It had never happened before. Lin Yi went to the washroom and returned to the classroom. Yushu winked at him and made a victory sign with her hand. Lin Yi smiled. Boss, why did you go out just now? Didn't you see that amazing scene? Kang Xiaobo looked at Lin Yi with a pitiful expression. Oh, what's wrong? Lin Yi asked with a smile as he sat down in his seat. You didn't see it, but Pinliang started spewing blood again? It was spectacular. I've never seen anyone bleed like that before. Kang Xiaobo said. You didn't see it, but it's even worse than yesterday? The blood was shooting out of his hand. Ah, is that so? Lin Yi said. Of course it was worse than yesterday. He'd only sped up his blood circulation yesterday, but he'd raised his blood pressure today. Lin Yi's phone vibrated again as he spoke. He'd received a text. Great teamwork, the best partner. Yay yay yay. Chapter 317. I don't understand, Kang Xiaobo asked curiously. Boss, whose text is it? It can't be from sis-in-law Tang Yun, right? What Tang Yun? She doesn't even have a phone. Lin Yi glared at Kang Xiaobo. It's the weather report. Oh. Kang Xiaobo remembered that Lin Yi was going to buy a phone with Tang Yun at noon. He was going to buy one for Xiaofan as well. At noon, Lin Yi, Tang Yun, Kang Xiaobo, and Lu Xinwen left the school together. Lin Yi had an old van, so he didn't need to take a taxi anymore. Although the car wasn't good, it was better than nothing. Tang Yun, Kang Xiaobo wants to buy a phone for Xiaofan. It'll be easier to contact her. What about you? Lin Yi asked Tang Yun, who was sitting in the front passenger seat. Kang Xiaobo gave the seat to Tang Yun and sat in the back with Lu Xinwen. Me? I'm not buying it. I don't have much use for it. Tang Yun shook her head. Her family situation didn't allow her to buy a phone. Although it wasn't expensive, she would need to buy a SIM card and a monthly rental fee. It wasn't a small amount, so Tang Yun rejected it. Boss will pay for it. Xiaobo continued. Fun's phone was a gift from my boss, sis-in-law. She'd never accept it if he bought her a phone if you didn't want it, sis-in-law. Please help me. Tang Yun couldn't help but giggle after hearing Kang Xiaobo's words. Begging someone to buy a phone for them. However, Tang Yun remembered that Lin Yi bought her a dress at the night market and asked her for 50 kuai. Thinking about it, it was strange sometimes. Back then she had hated him to death, but now she was sitting quietly in his car, sitting beside him. She'd thrown the dress in her closet because she was mad. But she'd probably be able to find it when she got home tonight. Tang Yun couldn't help but smile at the thought. Would she have accepted the dress if he'd given it to her? The answer was no. But now Lin Yi wanted to buy her a phone, and after some persuasion from Kang Xiaobo, Tang Yun acquiesced. Lin Yi parked the car in front of a mobile phone store, and the four of them got out of the car together. When the salesperson saw that the four of them were wearing school uniforms, he knew that they were students. He immediately recommended a few cheap cell phones. Kang Xiaobo also wanted to buy a cheaper phone. He didn't want Lin Yi to spend money on a smartphone that easily cost a few thousand yuan. What price range do you want to buy? The salesperson asked. Kang Xiaobo wanted to say 200 or 300 yuan, but Lin Yi had to make the decision, so he turned to look at Lin Yi. Lin Yi knew that Kang Xiaobo wanted to buy a cheaper one. According to his plan yesterday, he wanted to buy 200 or 300 yuan, but Lin Yi didn't want to buy one that was too cheap for Tang Yun. If he bought one that was 200 or 300 yuan for Xiaofan, Lin Yi naturally wouldn't buy one that was too expensive for Tang Yun. Differential treatment, and it wouldn't be good if Xiaofan had any ideas. Around 1,000 yuan. Lin Yi thought about it and set a price. Tang Yun wouldn't be able to accept a price that was too expensive, so this price should be about right. Nokia 5233, this phone is very popular among students. It's cheap and has all the functions, but it lacks the GPS function compared to the 5230. But you students won't need that function anyway. The salesperson took out a phone and introduced it to Lin Yi and the others. The price is cheaper than the 5230, only 833 yuan. What do you think? Lin Yi pushed the phone to Tang Yun, asking for her opinion. It's pretty good, but it's a bit expensive. Tang Yun still couldn't accept the fact that she wanted something from Lin Yi. Although Kang Xiaobo tried to persuade her for a long time, she still felt that she shouldn't buy it. Heh. Lin Yi smiled and said to the salesperson, then I'll take 3 of these phones. How about, we buy the 300 yuan one? Tang Yun saw that Lin Yi wanted to buy it, so she hesitated and pointed at the 300 yuan phone. Please. Kang Xiaobo is giving it to Fen, it's too shabby, he can't take it out, right? Lin Yi whispered. Oh. Tang Yun could only nod, but she felt a bit depressed in her heart. She owed Lin Yi more and more. How could she pay him back? from the barbecue recipe, to him helping her and her mother chase away those bullies, to Finn's medical fees, although Kang Xiaobo played a part in it, most of it was because of her face. So Tang Yun couldn't pretend that she didn't know anything. He saved her again. Now he wanted to buy a phone for her. Tang Yun didn't know if her relationship with Lin Yi would become more and more complicated if this continued. Did he really like her? While he was hesitating, Lin Yi had already bought 3 phones and 2 SIM cards. One of them was Finn's birthday, and the other was Tang Yun's birthday. Xinwen was in charge of both of them. Lin Yi swiped the card and distributed the phones. Tang Yun got one, Kang Xiaobo got one, and Lu Xinwen had an older phone, so she didn't need to buy it. Lin Yi used the last one for himself. The expensive phone from before was also broken, so Lin Yi bought a cheap one. No matter how expensive it would be ruined if it was soaked in water. Lin Yi's job was more dangerous, so he chose a cheap phone. If it wasn't for the fact that Yushu's phone was too feminine and Lin Yi didn't want to take it out, Lin Yi would just use it. Tang Yun sighed lightly. She owed him a lot. She owed him a lot already, so a phone wouldn't make much of a difference. But when she got in the car, she whispered to Lin Yi, "Thank you, ha." Lin Yi smiled and turned his head to look at Tang Yun mischievously. "Then how are you going to thank me?" "What? How am I going to thank you?" Tang Yun jumped and blushed, remembering what she promised him yesterday at the hospital. Her heart raced. "Yesterday at the hospital, you still owe me a kiss," Lin Yi said in a low voice. As expected, he was talking about that. Tang Yun blushed. What? What? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand. Chapter 318. A moment of brilliance. Lin Yi drove Tang Yun, Kang Xiaobo, and Lu Xinwen to the entrance of the hospital. "Then, I'll be leaving?" Tang Yun hugged the phone, feeling a bit uneasy. It was the first time she'd received such an expensive gift from someone, and it was from a boy. Tang Yun couldn't calm down for a long time. "Yeah, I won't be using my phone for the next few days. Text me if there's anything, I'll check it after I turn it on." Lin Yi said, "You can take a taxi with Xiaobo later, let him pay." Tang Yun couldn't help but smile as she listened to Lin Yi's words. Her smile was like a blooming flower. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat as he grabbed Tang Yun's hand and pulled her back. What are you doing?" Tang Yun froze and looked at Kang Xiaobo and Lu Xinwen, who'd already gotten out of the car. She let out a breath of relief when she saw that they weren't looking at her. "Aren't you going to say something before we leave?" Lin Yi pointed at his face. I'll say it again." Tang Yun couldn't stand Lin Yi's teasing. She struggled out of Lin Yi's hand and ran out of the car. Her heart raced as she let out a long breath. She looked at Lin Yi and pouted before turning around and ignoring him. If it had been anyone else, Tang Yun would have run away crying, but with Lin Yi, all she felt was shyness. Tang Yun, who suddenly realized this, started to feel lost. Was it a good thing for her to fall deeper and deeper in love with Lin Yi? "Yin, what's wrong? You don't look well?" Lu Xinwen was talking to Kang Xiaobo when she looked up to see Tang Yun's reddened face. It was like she had a heat stroke. "It's nothing." Tang Yun quickly shook her head. Let's go." Xinwen shook her head. She didn't know what happened to Tang Yun. She turned around to look at Lin Yi's car, but realized that Lin Yi's car was already far away. She could only bury the question in her heart. Before leaving the country, Lin Yi had to deal with Lu Jinhu's illness first. While he could extort some money from the man, he could also give Xuemin time to start planning for the medical company. This incident made Lin Yi realize that it was better to be on time than to be on time. He was just thinking about how to get 100 million yuan of startup capital, and in the blink of an eye, the Lu family sent it to him. The efficiency of raising funds was probably unmatched. Lin Yi gave Guan Xuemin a call and told him to call Jianghu and the others over. He'd be there soon. "All right, Lu Tiany's already waiting here, waiting for your news. He'll have someone bring Elder Lu here," Xuemin said. "Have you had lunch?" "Not yet, but there's no rush," Lin Yi said. "All right then, I'll have XNXN prepare some food." Xuemin made the decision for Lin Yi. All right. Lin Yi didn't argue about these trivial things and drove straight to Xuemin's house. By the time Lin Yi got there, Jianghu was already there. He was sitting in the living room waiting for Lin Yi. When he saw Lin Yi walk in, Jianghu stood up with Lu Tiany's help. "Miracle doctor, I'll have to trouble you then." Jianghu's attitude made Lin Yi a little embarrassed. He took so much money from him and he was still being so respectful to him. But he really needed money right now, so he couldn't be soft-hearted. Plus he couldn't be blamed for this. They only had themselves to blame for marrying a snobbish daughter-in-law and having a retarded nephew. "Elder Lu, you don't have to be so polite." Lin Yi waved his hand. "Let's go find an empty room." All right, Miracle Dr. Lin, about the consultation fee. Lu Qianni wasn't an idiot. Even if Linny didn't ask about the consultation fee, he couldn't not mention it. If he pretended not to know, then he'd be an idiot. Grandpa Guan, do you have a bank account? Transfer it directly. Linny turned to Xuemin. Transfer it to my account? Xuemin paused for a moment, then understood that Linny wanted him to plan for the medical company. He nodded. All right, transfer it to my account first. Mr. Lu, do you know my account number? I do. Lu Qianni nodded. He'd planned to transfer 2 million to Xuemin as well, so he'd memorized Xuemin's number. Lu Qianni called one of his subordinates and had them transfer the 100 million to Xuemin's account. A moment later, Xuemin's phone rang with a notification. After confirming that there were no issues, Lin Yi nodded in satisfaction. It seemed that Lu Qianni was a man of his word. He didn't have to completely cut ties with him in the future. But that wife of his was nothing to be proud of. In an empty room upstairs, Lin Yi had Jianghu lie down and asked Xuemin for a box of silver needles. He then looked at Jianghu quietly, not in a hurry to insert the needles. He was thinking about something. He'd already checked on Jianghu's condition the first time they met, so he didn't need to check it again. What he needed to do now was think of a treatment plan, the quickest and most effective way to cure Jianghu's angina. Of course, a complete cure wasn't possible, at least not right now. Old Lin's miraculous pills were hidden away like treasures, so he couldn't take them out even if he wanted to. But it was possible to keep the disease from acting up for 10 years, but that was a bit of a scam. Linny sighed. Whatever, he'd keep the disease under control for 10 years first. If Jianghu really did live to 100 years old, then he'd think of something else. With that in mind, Linny quickly inserted needles into Jianghu's body. His speed was so fast that even Xuemin, the god of acupuncture, was in awe. He did it in one go. 2 minutes later, Lin Yi began inserting needles into each needle. Neguan, Shemin, Inqi, Juk, Shanzhong inject energy into the needles. Jiao Lao's voice suddenly rang in Lin Yi's ears. Lin Yi was overjoyed. He didn't know what kind of person Jiao Lao was, but with his help, things would be much easier. Lin Yi hurriedly did as he was told. The needle handle that had been injected with energy suddenly began to vibrate with a buzzing sound, as if something was driving it. Even when Lin Yi's hand left the handle, the needles continued to vibrate on Jianghu's body. Chapter 319. A master in disguise, Lu Qianni, who'd been watching Lin Yi's acupuncture, didn't know much about acupuncture, but he was still shocked by what he was seeing. Seeing the same expression on Guan Xuemin's face, Lu Qianni was even more certain that Lin Yi was a master in disguise. In actuality, Lin Yi was just as shocked as Qianni and Guan Xuemin were. He didn't think that infusing the art of dragon mastery into the needles would result in something like this. Jiao Lao, what's going on? Lin Yi asked. It's normal. Jiao Lao's voice was still calm. Although you can't use the energy from the art of dragon mastery to treat the patient with your first stage, you can still maintain it like last time. Do as I say and you should be able to make it through 10 years. What? That's it? Lin Yi was pleasantly surprised. In his original plan, he planned to use acupuncture and medicine together. As long as the patient kept taking medicine after the acupuncture, he'd be able to control the angina, but he'd have to do acupuncture once a year. Of course, he'd thought of an excuse beforehand. He'd said that he'd check up once a year, and the Lius would be more than happy to bring Jianghu over for acupuncture. That way he wouldn't go back on his promise, saying that he'd treat Jianghu for 10 years, not all at once. But now he didn't have to worry about that anymore because Jiao Lao's voice sounded. Of course, the pure energy in your body is more than enough to maintain a patient's bodily functions, and that's it. Is that strange? It is. Does that mean other golden class masters can do the same? Lin Yi asked. Didn't I say it before? Only the energy in your body is pure energy. The martial arts they practice produce pure qi, and every martial art has a different type of pure qi. That's why the pure qi produced only works on their own martial arts. If used on others, it'll either be useless or have the opposite effect. Jiao Lao said with a tone of exasperation. Ah, I see. Lin Yi laughed awkwardly. In front of others, Lin Yi could call them idiots, but in front of Jiao Lao, Lin Yi could only laugh dryly. All right, time to put the needles away. Now, follow the order I say and insert the needles into Jian Shu. Jiao Lao named a few more acupoints. Send the energy in. Lin Yi did as he was told and the needles danced again. Guan Xuemin was amazed and Lu Qianni even looked up to Lin Yi as if he was a god. The 100 million was worth it. If he had an argument with Lin Yi because of the 100 million, not only would he have missed out on such a miraculous treatment, but the Lu family would have missed out on a miracle doctor. Phew, Lin Yi let out a long breath. Although he had enough energy in his body, transmitting the energy for a long time still made Lin Yi sweat. After repeating this 3 times, Lin Yi put away the needles, wiped the sweat off his forehead and said, "Done." Done. It wasn't that Lu Qianyi didn't trust Lin Yi, but it had only been an hour or so. His father's angina had been treated for so many years, and he had visited countless famous doctors to no avail. How could he be cured in a little more than an hour? Although he had seen the magic of Lin Yi's acupuncture, it was still hard for Lu Qianyi to believe that Lin Yi had cured his father's illness in such a short amount of time. But he didn't dare to ask, afraid that he would make Lin Yi unhappy. He could only hold back his questions and look at his father. "Dad, how do you feel?" Lu Qianyi could only ask his father how he felt. "Much better, so comfortable. But my body feels so uncomfortable, I need to take a bath." Lu Jianghu felt refreshed, but there was a sticky feeling on his body that was very uncomfortable. Lu Qianyi ran over to help his father up, but he was shocked to see a layer of greasy black and yellow dirt on his father's skin. What is this?" Guan Shuamin also walked over after being reminded by Lu Qianyi. When Lin Yi was performing acupuncture, the two of them were afraid that they would affect Lin Yi, so they stood far behind him. When they got closer, their hands were trembling in shock. Bone and marrow cleansing? Guan Shuamin naturally knew about bone and marrow cleansing in ancient medicine, but it had been lost for many years. Bone and marrow cleansing referred to the use of acupuncture or herbs to expel toxins from the body, achieving an effect similar to rebirth. It was inevitable that toxins would be stored in the body when humans ate grains. Although metabolism could expel some of it, there was still some that would be absorbed by the body. As time went on, the toxins would accumulate more and more. Guan Shuamin didn't expect Lin Yi's acupuncture to be so effective. Not only could it cure diseases, but it could also expel toxins from the body. Lin Yi paused when he heard what Guan Shuamin called him, but then Jiao Yazi's voice sounded in his ears. "Lin Yi, your pure energy has a part of the effect of expelling toxins, so even if you didn't do it on purpose, it would still bring about this result. But that Lu Jianghu will probably live a few more years, and you'll have to perform acupuncture on him in 10 years. Lu Jianghu? Lin Yi didn't know what to say, but it wasn't all that strange coming from Jiao Lao's mouth. Jiao Lao was an old monster, and although Lin Yi wanted to ask, Jiao Lao kept saying that he was too weak to know too much, so there was nothing Lin Yi could do. But one thing was for sure, Jiao Lao was far older than Lu Jianghu, which was why he called him kid. Ah. Lin Yi smiled but didn't explain. It seemed that Lu Jianghu's 100 million hadn't been spent in vain. Not only did it cure his illness, it also extended his life. Good things like this couldn't be bought with money. But, since Jianghu was going to live a few more years, Lin Yi had to give him a heads up. "Elder Lu's health isn't good, so I did it for a bit. But I have some bad news for you, Mr. Lu." "What news? Please tell me, Miracle Dr. Lin." Lu Qianyi was startled. He'd thought that bone and marrow cleansing was a good thing, and the excitement from Guan Shuamin made him think that his father had gotten a great bargain. But then he heard Lin Yi say that there was bad news. Even the usually calm Lu Jianghu couldn't help but raise his head. Didn't Lin Yi say that he was cured? Why would there be bad news? Could it be that bone and marrow cleansing was harmful to the body? But why did he feel so good?